Yo, what is going on YouTube? Welcome tonight. Thanks for joining on this lovely Sunday evening, or depending on where you are in the world. And today I've got a live stream in store for you guys in regards to this topic, which I've been delaying for a little while, but I thought today is the perfect day to talk about this religion, which is, has religion helped or hurt the Black community? Are we as a people cursed? Because today, for most people, most of our people, it is Sunday, the day of rest, as it used to be called, the Sabbath. And I thought, what better day today than to discuss this pertinent topic that still is lingering over our head about religion, its impact on our communities, whether it's helped us, whether it's hurt us, whether it's in a liberation force, or has it been a noose over our neck, whether it is a symbolism or a viewpoint of change, bondage, or liberation. So this is the live stream. This is the topic that I really wanted to discuss. So we're really going to get into it because, unfortunately, I have some views, some very strong views on this. So for all those people who are religious, heavy religious, I do have to preface this by saying this. I have nothing against anybody who is religious. So if you believe in the Bible, the Quran, if you're a Sikh, a Hindu, a Jew, I have absolutely zero problem at all. I believe it is your fundamental right as a human being to believe whatever you believe. However, I also believe we should scrutinize what people believe. I also believe we should take note or take stock as to what we do, what we say, what we preach, what we teach, and say, what impact has this had on our community? So, to answer the question, has religion helped or hurt the Black community? Unequivocally, it has hurt the Black community. There's no question about it. What's up, KB? Evening, man. We're going to get into this today because this is a topic I've been really itching to get into. And if I offend some people, you know what? It is what it is. I'm sure you get over it. It is what it is. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you're new, and if you're watching the clouds, make sure you like the stream. But yeah, religion in a way has helped us. It has helped our Black communities to look like it is, for better or for worse, which right now is for worst. And for certain, it has hurt the Black community because the actual impact of us as a people in regards to religion, there's no question about what religion has done. Matter of fact, the reason why our people speak the language that we do could be, let's be honest, partly to blame because of how the religion has spread over the world. Because the two main religions that we are in right now, let's be honest, by every statistical category, what I've researched and talking to Black people, it is Christianity and Islam. So a Muslim or a Christian. Now, the only way in history how our people have ever been brought to us, those two religions, have been by only two ways: by the sword and by, let's be honest, by chains. That is the only way we as a people have ever been brought this religion. Now, I know some people argue about conversion and, being proselytized and having this epiphany, but let's just keep it real. Throughout our families, it has been passed down through generation to generation to generation, so much so it is an institution. And depending on what family you're in and depending on what part of the world that you're in, it's even more pronounced than other families who different use it. But here's the reason why I say it's hurt us. Because here's the thing. It's not only Black people who are religious. It's not only Black people who believe in Christianity or believe in Islam or Judaism or Sikhism or whatever religious background that you form a part of. It's not only Black people, so I have to keep it real. But here's the difference. And here's the fundamental difference as to why it hurts us more than anyone else. We seem to be the only ones who take on this gung-ho, almost stupid belief system, which goes against all logic, all sort of rationale, all types of common sense, where I'm sitting back and I listen to people when I ask the question, why do you believe what you believe? And can you back up your claims as to what you believe? And I'm telling you, for those who haven't done it before, I mean, you have to have the most amount of patience when you do this. But I'm telling you, please, for your own benefit and for your own education, I dare you, go to a Black Christian. It has to be a Black Christian. Matter of fact, do it for both. Go to a white Christian first, then go to the Black Christian. And you try to have an actual logical conversation about why you believe what you believe. Can you prove it? What makes you believe what you believe? And I swear to Jesus, there is a marked difference into how the white person will rationalize their religion as opposed to how Black people rationalize their religion. It is night and day. And that is why I say it hurts us, because we have this thing in the Black community where everything operates on what we like to call faith. And my God, with that faith becomes leaps of things which I never thought was possible. See, white people are clever, you see. See, when they use religion, it's only in certain ways. See, they won't go gung-ho for religion like black people do. And what I'm going to do right now is, in a bit, I'm going to play a clip, about an 8-minute clip. It's nothing more than 10 minutes. And I may stop it throughout, in which it completely confirms everything I'm talking about in regards to how black people take on religion as opposed to white people. We take on religion more, and we're more gung-ho about things like Christianity than the white man is, who gave us that religion. That's how crazy this is. And this is how I know it hurts us, because when it comes to actually understanding how to move in this world, guess what we do? We get held back because of the belief system that we have, which white people themselves won't even believe in, which white people themselves are like, this and that's BS. We're not going to turn the other cheek. We're not going to forgive that neighbor or forgive all these people. We're not going to do all that kind of BS. We're actually going to stand on our own 2 feet. We're going to believe in our own people, and we're going to go from here as an economic force. Whereas black people, what do? Wait and pray. Sit and pray. Turn the other cheek. All these kind of things which have been used to us, preached to us, which has been institutionalized over the centuries. So much so that when you speak to the average black religious person, I'm telling you, sometimes I have to go back and really just, what I was really like this. Seriously, in my younger days, I was really like this. I would have a conversation with somebody who generally wanted to know about why you believed in what you believed. And the things that used to come out my mouth, even now, I'm so shocked as to how I could be so gung-ho, and some of the rhetoric that come out of black people's mouths, because we just institutionalized from the preachers down to the elders, to the teachers, the mothers, the fathers. It's almost like there's a response, a common response whenever you say something. And again, I need to go in this video. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share this video. Again, it's not long at all, but I'm telling you, this shows me exactly the reason why, and it should hopefully show you why I say religion has hurt the black community. I'm telling you, it is madness. Let's say hello to the chat. Let's see here. So, what's up, Vincent? How's it going? I see you in the chat. Hope you're having a good, I think it's afternoon where you're at. KB Jones has always said hello to you, but salute again. Yep. You know what? Yeah. Vincent, me and you have a lot in common, because my mother was a pastor too, and a minister. So all my days, I would love to hear your viewpoints, because you're still quite young, and at that age, I'm still a little bit on that side. You see, so I would love to hear your viewpoint on this when I open up the chat. But for now, I got to keep going. So right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to share this video. Again, it's a 10-minute clip, and it's actually one of my favorite programs. From the Big Questions. I don't know if anyone's actually watched it before. It's usually on YouTube. It used to be on, I want to say, Channel 1, in which they used to discuss the big questions. Who are we as people? Where do we come from? Religion. It was never afraid to discuss things which nowadays, I'm telling you, people won't be able to discuss, I want to say, in this manner that it's been discussed. But I really love this program. It's really good. But just watch this. Let's
gives you a different way of looking at
it. That's not the way that God works. The whole point of science is that it doesn't require faith, that it has evidence that backs up your beliefs.
How does science help those people in Kibera? How does science help?
Hang on. Wait a minute, over here. Carry on. Laurie's over here.
Science doesn't need faith. How? In what way does science need faith? No, but I don't have faith.
It needs a leap of faith. What happened 1 second before the Big Bang?
I don't know, but that
absolutely. So you're exercising faith.
All right. So already we saw this now. So the white guy is talking about science and trying to prove things, and immediately, who pops up? This Negro. And what is he saying? Faith. He has absolutely no scientific basis, no nothing, but because he's, let's be honest, sipped that crack cup of religion, guess what happens? Faith comes out, he can't rationalize, and he's so gung-ho about it. Look at how gung-ho he is. I'm going to keep playing this, but I'm going to have to pause this, because this is what I'm talking about when I talk about how black people, they take on religion and how they actually view it and how it gets infused inside our spirit. Because a lot of times I do believe this, that when religion gets taken by us, we infuse a different spirit, which makes us even more gung-ho for the religion than the people who brought us the religion. Let's continue.
Be honest.
Can I finish? Right?
Absolutely.
The fact that I don't know what happened a second before the Big Bang doesn't, assuming you can even consider a second before the Big Bang, assuming time existed, doesn't mean that science never will know that.
Didn't say that. So that means that you are exercising faith.
No, it means that I'm working on the basis of
You
the
are
best available
exercising
evidence.
faith.
Right there again. This is a classic Christian debate tactic. The guy said he does not know, but science will look to prove it. So science will say, I do not know, therefore we're going to find out, we just don't know. So immediately, because you don't know, Christian will automatically say, well, that must mean faith. Well, that must mean faith. It's almost like they cannot rationalize anything else outside of that word called faith. And it's like this white guy's trying to explain to him, look, we do not know this, but we're going to find out. But he can't, all of a sudden, it seemed to, in their mind, validate everything about his religion, that it must be faith. It must be faith. Madness. But this is what happens when you debate Christians, especially black Christians. Again, and you're going to see something later on this clip about when white Christians, how they operate and how different it is. Let's continue.
Be honest.
We'll give it evidence.
Well, science,
Christians used to teach. Can I just make this point?
Wait. This is very difficult to follow. But the fact is that religion used to claim to explain everything, but it explains the Big Bang is a good one. Though.
It is, because in the 50s, Christians used to say that the universe had a beginning. Science used to say the universe didn't have a beginning. It always existed.
Some scientists.
Absolutely.
Scientists isn't
Some
one.
science has moved.
So if
So you need to, as scientists, you need to exercise faith.
No. If science
How in God's earth could he say that out of his mouth with a straight face? Science has always been about proving any theory, anything that has been pretty much uttered into the ether. Science has never operated on faith. It's always operated on good knowledge, sound knowledge at that time. So this is why science will always change, because science has to operate on good knowledge. I was going to say good faith. My man's got me almost sipping that cup, whatever he's sipping right now.
was still peddling that principle that the universe had always existed because that's what we believe, then absolutely we would be no better than religion. But science has looked at the evidence and moved on. Yeah. Faith doesn't do that. Religion doesn't do that. So what
happened? I go back to my question. You are still exercising, but you are still exercising faith.
Wait, thank you. Religion. Why is it that in the countries of the world which have most educated people, is there most atheism? Why is that?
I just socioeconomics. People find new gods, don't they? People find new, like whether it be celebrity or whether it be money, and then you come back, and then some of those people find celebrity, find money, and find actually.
If you taught in science that there are one group of people who believe the Earth is round and there is another group of people who believe the Earth is flat, you automatically bring in this assumption that the two propositions are a 50-50 proposition. And by teaching all these different ideas of the world, that evolution might be true, that religion might be true, that isn't the case. And it frustrates me that it's being taught as different kinds of truth.
Sorry?
What is the point of religion?
What is the point of religion?
If you can take these great parts of the Bible, which say, love your neighbour, do good to those who persecute you, etc., that's brilliant. What you don't need is the things that say, burn witches, stone adulterers. And if you can cherry pick that...
It's very easy for people outside faith to look in and accuse people and say, you know, you're cherry picking this, that and the other.
Laurie, what do you think about giving a child that you have the religion that you want to give that child?
I think it's quite naive to say that that there aren't people with very, very strong faith who do horrible things and believe horrible things because of their religion. Now, it doesn't mean that it actually says that in their texts, or that's what the texts mean, or what the correct interpretation is, or whatever. But there are people who, bomb abortion clinics because they feel so strongly based on their faith that that's the right thing to do. I think that's highly polluting to many people's minds, and certainly can be extremely damaging in children. I think parents have an absolute right to bring their children up in the manner they see fit. But, it becomes danger when, say, Jehovah's Witnesses restricting their children from having, blood transplants transfusion, because they think that it's against God. I mean, that people die as a result of that.
But that's more, but for them, that is more important. That for them, I guess, the idea that they could die isn't the worst thing that could happen,
Right.
because within that religious understanding, there are things that they find more important than you who don't have a particular.
Right, and that's great for that's great for them. And as an individual, they have every right to die as a result of lack of medical treatment because of what they believe. But when their kids with developing leukemia aren't getting the treatment they need because their parents believe things which are frankly insane,
I think there should be protection.
Faith schools are a good idea then. They give you that moral code.
No. But why would you need faith to give you a moral code? There's so much.
Where do you think most of the moral code comes from?
Human beings.
From people.
Just human beings, we just kind of made up.
If you take...
A lot of this country that you're living in was built on a very Christian foundation. A lot of it.
No,
But the ancient Greeks had a moral code.
Yeah, they had a moral code, but it's all built on
That was long before Jesus.
But it's all built on faith, isn't it? It was all built on their faith and their...
You hear that? You hear that, guys? You see that? The second black person that we saw in this clip, what is he talking about? He is talking about the same thing that first brother was talking about, faith. Isn't it amazing how I let it play through quite a while, and you saw the contrast between how black people rationalize their religion and how white people, because you even saw white Christians on it. You saw that woman with the dog collar. She must be either a vicar or something like that. Did you not see how they were interacting and talking about their faith and how they was able to intellectually talk about it? Whereas when it comes to black people, when it comes to us, now these are black males now. I just want to also point this out. These aren't black women. These are black males who have been institutionalized in this religion stuff. And guess what? They have the same type of rhetoric that, I'm going to keep it real with you, that you would expect from a woman, but this is coming from a man, talking about faith, as opposed to intellectually understanding the information and trying to disseminate it to the people. You see what I mean when I call the difference between how our people infuse their religion in comparison to how white people do, when white people brought the religion to us? Madness.
Gods. So it's all built on a higher ground, on a higher purpose. That's where it's all...
Any of the human rights legislations that have come in the last 50, 100 years, the legislation against homophobia, against sexism, you take any of those things, against slavery, how many of them came from the Bible? Religion is consistently opposed
A lot of
over
those.
the years.
A lot of those.
Any of the progressive actions that our laws have come back.
But I think we also need to look at the fact that human rights legislation says that children need to have freedom of religion, and parents also need to have freedom to bring their children up in a religion if they choose to. Now, obviously, you have to balance that against
human
the
rights laws often compete against each other, don't they?
Exactly. You balance it against the right of the child to make their own decision to leave a religion if they want to.
For example, the process of evolution. And they say that deepens their faith because it is so amazing.
Yeah, completely. I think science, I'm not a scientist, but I find myself hearing these scientific developments in quantum physics, and as far as I do understand it, I stand in awe, and I think it's amazing and awesome, and I'm inspired in wonder. I don't have a kind of breakdown in my faith, because I'm not reading the Bible like as you say, like a manual or a textbook or a science.
You see that there? You see what she said? I'm just gonna play that back a little second. I'm gonna play that back. I'm gonna play that one time. Just so you actually just listen to what she just said there. Now keep this in mind now. She has a dog collar and she clearly is a Christian. But I'm just gonna replay exactly what she said, just so you understand what I'm talking about, the difference. One more time.
And I'm inspired in wonder. I don't have a kind of breakdown in my faith, because I'm not reading the Bible like as you say, like a manual or a textbook or a scientific. Excuse me.
It's pointless. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you get rid of the Bible and say that you have to follow evolution.
See, you're not seeing this guy. This is again that same guy. I'm like, who is my man? The same guy at the start of this clip, the first black guy started this clip. He is now pretty much teaching the teacher about her religion. You see what I'm talking about? How black people are more gung-ho about a religion which came from her people. I mean, I've got to replay this again. You got to see this. You got to see this.
The Bible, like as you say, like a manual or a textbook or a scientific. Excuse me.
Look at him typing up. I mean, man.
Pointless. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you get rid of the Bible and say that you have to follow evolution, then the whole basis of the Bible breaks down. The whole basis, the whole point of us being here, the whole concept of sin.
Your faith may break down if you don't believe in creationism, but it doesn't.
It's very disingenuous of Christians to
There are many
teach.
people.
This is what I mean. Again, they are drunk on that holy water. They're all drunk on that holy water. So I don't know. This is what I'm talking about, where how black people, how they take something on, it almost takes a new force, a new direction, which is completely different to how I want to say the people who brought it to us have.
Many people who read that, many scientists, and it has deepened. I know Christians deepened their faith because it is
Faith in
such
what?
a
Because
faith
it
in
means,
God.
well, if you believe in evolution, it means that the whole
It's no
basis
question of believing in
of the
evolution.
Bible
The
breaks down.
Genesis story
You know, I
is
believe
not
in the
a
whole
science.
Laurie,
You
when you hear phrases like that, believe.
This guy is having a mental breakdown. He's having a mental breakdown. And this is what happens when you bring information to Christians, black Christians. They have a mental breakdown. This is what happens with black Christians when they're trying to, argue about how old the earth is. I argue about how us as human beings evolved or came to be in our great numbers. They have a mental breakdown. So much so that you can't even really have a good debate. Swear to God, if you ever try and have a nice, calm conversation like these white people are having, guess what happens when you talk to a black person who's on that faith? You ain't having no nice debate. You're having a spirited, heated argument. That's how deep this goes. It's deep.
Believing in evolution. What do you
Well,
think?
I think it's lovely when people are able to, reconcile their beliefs, and they're welcome to them. The problem is that a lot of, as this man's demonstrating, a lot of religious people make scientific claims, make claims about the natural world, whether that's the virgin birth, whether it's the nature of the development of life on this earth. They're making claims which can be testable by science, are hypotheses which can be tested with evidence, and time again they've been demonstrated to be inaccurate, to not hold up to the best evidence we can get. Now, if you want to have faith in God and believe that there's some kind of spiritual force in the universe, that's fine, great. And I know plenty of scientists who have that kind of belief and believe in science. When you're making claims about the natural world that simply aren't true, then you're wrong.
All right, then. So that was that clip. And you saw exactly what I'm talking about in regards to how religion has hurt us as a people, because how we take on the religion. Now, at the end of that clip, that white guy was saying, he was talking about how science aims to try and, again, it understands, it tests the theories that religion brings forth, whether it be the virgin birth, whether it be how old the earth is, whatever religious text, whatever story comes from these religious texts, what they do is that they try and prove it. If they don't know, they don't know, but they're going to try and find out. But again, with black people, if you try and even go with it, a mental breakdown pursues. Because again, black people love to try and take on religion in ways which even their own people who taught them don't take on the religion. And this is why we find ourselves at the bottom. Because here's the thing I also wanted to bring up. And I think this was touched on in the chat. I didn't bring it up now, but I'm going to try. I think Vincent, you may have brought it up. Let me just say hello to the chat. The Skittles man reloaded. What's up, man? Yep, another stream, DJ Khaled voice. Absolutely. We're really getting it in today because this is a stream I've been wanting to do for a while. And I'm going to be honest with you, depending on the direction, this is most likely going to have to be a part 2, part 3, part 4. Because one of the things as well, which I want to discuss about black people and their faith and black people being all this and all this kind of other stuff is most black people don't even follow the text that they so claim to believe. Because you saw that black guy in that clip. He was basically telling that white woman, that vicar, that you're not believing in the faith, or you're not basically a true believer if you don't believe in the faith in regards to if you dispel evolution, you dispel anything that science brings up. That's what he was basically saying. And I'm just like this. Listen, I can guarantee it, that black Christian, or most Christians today, aren't even following the text that they believe that they do. Yet they claim faith. Yet they claim this. Yes, they claim that. And we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it today because we really need to break down this religious aspect as to why, as a people, are we like this? Why are we like this? There's a reason. I've got some theories. I'm going to bring it up as to why we're like this, as to why we're as a people, when we are religious, we're different. And it has been touched on in the chat, spirituality. And my thoughts, Vincent, on spirituality, it's this. I think we as a people are naturally more spiritual. Now, I still don't know why that is the case. I've heard a lot of theories in regards to, all this, the African spirituality that was probably our original religion before Islam and Christianity came onto the shores via conquest. So I've heard that innately with us. I know you hear the voodoo. So Haitian voodoo, you got voodoo on the continent of Africa, voodoo in across the Caribbean. So a lot of these things really are based on spirituality aspects as opposed to fundamental text aspects which seem to govern a lot more of, let's just say, non-black culture, because black culture is more about a feeling, it's about a sway, it's about a feeling, it's about a movement. If you listen to our music, listen to how we talk, you listen to how we rationalize, you listen to how we think, what we do, how we move, it's all based on feeling, which again brings back to the spirituality point. But the problem is, this is how it hurts us. We cannot run our lives on feelings and emotions. You saw the clip, you saw how emotional the black person got, and you saw how calm and how soothing and how this is so wonderful. You know, when science comes and says this is so wonderful, it doesn't break my faith. You know, it actually enhances my faith. Whereas the black guy's like, no, that ruins your faith. You don't believe in God. You see how that works because of how they position themselves, how they use it. But again, that's all down to how us as a people, I think, are hardwired. Again, down to the fact that there's some things in our DNA which I don't care how many years removed from our homelands we are. I don't care how many years removed we are from our true culture before conquest, before colonization, before slavery. We still have that in our DNA, which just thrives in all aspects of our lives. So what are my thoughts on spirituality? Yeah, I think it's a legitimate an argument. I think it's something which I do believe in some aspects, because I got to look at our people. I don't see what else you can call it if you don't see what you just saw there, as opposed to it has to be something spiritual going on here. There's something going on in black people when it comes to religions, which just our innate essence, it brings it out, especially when it comes to black church. Because if you've ever gone to the average black church, because I grew up in a Pentecostal church, okay? So in the Pentecostal church, it was a stereotype church where it was very, white people like all singing, dancing, and all that kind of stuff. It was very up-tempo, very feely, very emotional, people speaking in tongues and people getting the Holy Spirit. So for me growing up, that's all I saw when it come to church, and go around to other different black churches. There were different denomination stuff, but for the most part, when I rationalized black church, how I grew up, how I saw a massive difference between how black people did it, went to church, and how they had church with the music, with the singing, the dancing, with the 3 hours at church, the conventions, the crusades. Jesus have mercy. As opposed to when white people have their church, it's very nice and orderly. The church that I went to, and let's be honest, it lasted for an hour, and it lasted an hour and a half, let's be honest. And then it really did last for an hour and a half, as opposed to preachers saying 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left. My man's gone on for another hour talking about nothing. This is why I'm saying, yes, we as a people are very spiritual, just innately spiritual. So I will not disagree with that. But again, it hurts us, because there was a point that was made in the stream about atheism, and how countries which are more educated seem to lean towards atheism, and how they're more prosperous. And you know what? It is 100% right. And you know what I like to do in typical fashion? I don't like to just speak on things. I want to prove it to you. I want to give you some statistics. That's what I like on this channel. I'm not just rhetoric, not just talk. I got to give you the pure facts. So let me share my screen here, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about, where they ain't half wrong. So let me enlarge that a second. So here is an article. Here's a Wikipedia page in regards to importance of religion by country. Now, this was done in 2009, in which the question was asked: is religion important in your daily life? Percentage for yes and no. Answers listed below. And and it didn't often add up to 100%, because some answered don't know, didn't answer. But what I've done, so at the top here, it's got people said yes, religion is important in our lives. So this is what you can see. Now, look at the countries who rate religion as the most important part of our lives. Now, can you spot a pattern? So the first country ranked is Niger, Ethiopia, Somalia, Bangladesh, Oman, Sri Lanka, Malawi, Indonesia, Yemen, Burundi, Djibouti, Mauritania, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Laos, Guinea, Morocco, Egypt, Kosovo, Thailand, Philippines. Is there a pattern here? They're all non-white, a lot of them African nations, and poor. Nigeria, Cambodia, Senegal, Jordan, Ghana, Zambia, Qatar, Algeria, Chad, Rwanda, Congo, Mali, Central African Republic, Kenya. All of these ranking in the 90-odd% range. So all of these nations here, poor as hell. Let's just be honest. I think there may be one or two nations on here who probably aren't as poor, but they're all stereotypically third world nations. If anyone said they're in these nations, you would think it's a third world nation. Let's just keep it honest. All of them rank religion as being the most important. And do you know why? Do you know why that is? It's because a lot of them is also tied into two things. And this is another thing I want to talk about, and now I wanted to sort of sideway into how us as a people, we are generally in economic poverty, and we're generally in educational poverty, because we're not doing that well educationally wise. I don't care where we are, the West or in the East. We're not doing well on either fronts. And religion seems to inflict a lot more damage on nations and people who are in poverty and who have not, let's say, not as intellectual. Because what does religion, as again with that video clip that we just saw, faith. Faith. Whereas the white people say, no, we want to rationalize, we want to understand, we want to prove. Can we prove what is said, as opposed to just saying faith? Because faith, as defined by the Bible, is the substance of things, substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So faith is something which they cannot prove. And that's fine for these people, but not for white people. Now, let's go to nations who see it as not important in their daily lives. And let's see the contrast. Well, top countries. So the first one is Estonia, 16%. Sweden, Denmark, Czech Republic, Norway, Japan, Hong Kong, UK, Finland, Vietnam, France, Australia, Netherlands, New Zealand, Belgium, Cuba. You see, do you see a pattern here? Do you see a pattern between the ones who do see it as important and the ones who don't see it as important in their daily lives? You see it night and day, just like that clip. White people, they don't see it as important in lives. They may say they're Christians, because, by the way, this doesn't say that they don't, this information or data, it doesn't say they are Christians or they aren't. It just says how important do they view it in their daily lives. I.e., if you listen to what that white woman said, she says, I don't use it as a manuscript, as a textbook for how my life should be lived. This is what happens with white nations. As you can see down here, these are all damn near European nations, or at least nations who are economically powerful, they're intellectual. These are nations which will say, okay, they will be in the G8 summit. These nations who are prosperous. These are nations who people want to actually emigrate to, who, funny enough, come from these nations. So these nations who want to go to these nations, and look at the difference between how they view religion. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? That tells us that we have some serious looking at, because, and I'm going to say this again, I have nothing against somebody who practices or believes in whatever religious faction that they want to believe in. I believe there's a lot of good things in these religious texts. Don't get me wrong. I believe a lot of things in the religious text we probably need to go back to. What I have a problem with is how we utilize it, how it's being used, because how it's being used from other races and other people shows us where we are in life, how we can't seem to move forward in things which we need to move forward on, because we are bound down by some of the religious texts and things which, I'll be honest with you, in this day and age, we have to move forward from. There's certain things which I do not know anybody who has gone through any sort of higher education can look back at some of these texts, read it wholeheartedly and say, with their chest out, I 100% believe that this text is just 100% factual, 100% truth, and 100% the word of God. How is it possible? I'm telling you, it's just mad. It is absolutely mad. But again, here's what I believe the reason why it's the case is because a lot of us, let's be honest, are in poverty, and a lot of us are intellectually in poverty. And because of that, we as people, guess what we look for? Because this is what religion provides. And I'm not going to deny it is what it is. That word, faith, I'm going to use another word, hope. It provides people hope. Hope of a better life tomorrow, hope of a better future. Because here's the thing that most humans, regardless of where you are, where you stand, what they kind of want to rely on, hope that tomorrow will be better. Because if at the end of the day, if you're in economic poverty, if you're in some sort of situation or issue, the only thing that keeps you up at night, the only thing that keeps you going is that hope. And for some people, or say for a lot of us, that is religion. For a lot of us, that is our Bible, the Quran. It may be a Jewish text, the Torah tonight. It may be whatever it may be. We use it as hope. But the problem is, again, I don't dispute that, and I don't disagree if anyone has a religious who believes in religion. I don't have a problem with anyone who says that they, subscribe to any of these religious institutions. But you just have to look at how you're applying it in your life. Because one thing I always want to know, and this is one of the things I always ask Christians: how is it that we are so religious, yet we're always in the most fucked up situation? How is it that people who aren't religious seem to be in the most prosperous position, but yet we're so religious, we're in the most dire, destitute situations ever on mankind. So let me ask you this question. How is it then that religion, which is supposed to liberate you, seems to put more bondage around your neck? Because I'm sorry, the average black Christian ain't living at large unless, and this is coming now, unless we're talking about the preachers, unless we're talking about the pastors, unless we talk about the church institutions. And this is the thing now. This is where these ministers, these leaders, and it leads into the pro-black thing. This is how they get you guys, because black people love miracles. Black people love hope. Black people love faith. So what happens when you have all those things infused with our natural, gregarious, enthusiastic, spiritual self? What happens? We go gung-ho. We give all our money. We give all our time. We give all our stresses. We devote our whole life in regards to this religion. And as a result, who are the people who benefit the most? While you're getting poorer and poorer and poorer, still praying to God, still seeking Him, still saying I'm gonna wait and pray, still saying I'm gonna get my deliverance, still saying I'm gonna come be a conqueror, still saying I'm gonna get double for my troubles, still saying all this nonsense that the preacher and the pastors tell you. While that preacher and pastor, he's living off your dime. What does that say? This is what I mean when I say we have got to have a conversation about how we use religion. It's not because religion is necessarily good or bad, because people can use whatever they want to for means of good or means of evil. But that's the whole point. How are we using it? We're using it for our own detriment, as using it for our own liberation, because we are taught in a lot of these institutions that we should be subservient, that we should be always humble, be meek, we should turn the other cheek. If someone does wrong to you, you should do right to them. And here's the thing, I'm not suggesting that we should do, all this kind of evil to people who do evil, but I'm sorry. There are certain situations that us as people, no turn of the cheek. We need to understand about how to fight back in the right way, but fight back, because I guarantee it, these other nations, we all know what the West does when something happens to them. We all know what's been happening right now. They will fight back to make sure they can protect themselves. Look at Jews. Jews are a classic example. They would protect themselves, their land, their people, and they would do it by, let's be honest, damn near any means necessary, which means bombing other places, doing all kinds of stuff, allying with other nations. This is how the world is run. But the problem is when we get into this religious fantasy world, because I think a lot of us as black people in this religious fantasy world, where we see they call it the secular world. They see the secular world as some sort of outer space dimension, outer limits type thing, as opposed to no Negro. You are actually in this world. You need to actually dominate this world. Otherwise, it will dominate you. So why are you worried about this whole spiritual? I'm worried about my spiritual self. I'm worried about my, I ain't worried about the world. I ain't worried about money and riches. I ain't worried about all that. I'm worried about my spiritual riches in God in heaven. I'm like, yeah, you do that. You do that. And then look at our people. Our people are in the most dire situation. Our people are economically broke. Our people are intellectually broke. All of this is fused by this religious text. And again, if you break it down as well, religion that was handed down to us, it's not a religion that really we should as a people be looking at, because let's be honest as well, there's another thing as well. Christianity, Islam, they're not black religions. They are non-black religions. And as a result of that, it also creates another dynamic where how is it you can see yourself as a godlike species or a godlike people if the God that you're praying to does not look like you? This is what happens. This is what every other culture has. This is why every culture has their own religion. If you realize this whole idea of one religion for all people, that's never existed in humanity, in life, throughout human history. What's happened throughout human history is every single nationality has their own religious practices, own religious teaching based on the cultural identity of that group of people. I'm going to say it again. Every racial group, ethnic group has its own religious belief system that coincides culturally with what they believe in. This is why when it comes to people say Christianity is the white man's religion. This is why Islam is Arab religion. This is why when it comes to other religions, it's based on their practices, whether it be Aboriginal, Native American religion. There are always religious sects and beliefs that coincide with the people that's on that island. So how is it that we as a people have taken all these other religions, but none of them look like us? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to sell to other groups of people a religious member who doesn't look like them if they are the prevailing people of that religion. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. How do you people? Because this is what happens when people say, "I don't see color. I don't see color." You are a liar, because the moment you change the color, guess what happened? You're going to get a fight back. Why? Because it does matter. Because people want to, because their God for their groups, they want to see themselves as that godlike. This is how it almost boosts your self-esteem, whereas us as black people, again, we take on these religions, it lowers our self-esteem because we're trying to validate ourselves with other religions, or say other peoples, other cultures. And guess what happens? Again, we are the ones that ends up being shafted. So at the end of the day, we're praying to a guy, we're praying to a God who, let's be honest, represents the people who, I'm not saying this, but people have told, this is what a lot of black people believe, has held you down for all your life. So you're praying to this white guy who's meant to be upholding white supremacy. How'd that work? So you're praying to a guy whose own people, who looks like them, their kith and kin, is the one who's responsible for white supremacy. How'd that work? How does that work? You're praying to a God who was your slave master's God. So let me ask you this question then. If a slave's praying to the same God as a slave master, the slave will pray to God to say, please free me from my chains. But the slave master will be praying, I need to enlarge my portions, which is I need more slaves. So who is God going to actually answer? Which prayers is God going to answer? Because if he can't answer both prayers at the same time, now can he? Because at the end of the day, the slave master wants more slaves to enlarge his portion, enlarge his empire. The slave wants to be freed. Those two things can't go hand in hand. This is just one of those things which just, it baffles the mind. But you know, when you talk about this kind of stuff with a lot of religious people, a lot of black people, a lot of just whatever it is, but particularly black people, it's almost like a mental breakdown. It's almost like you're giving them an epiphany because they can't rationalize anything outside of the faith. And even still, when we talk about their faith, and it's another thing, you guys aren't actually believing what you're saying you believe. Because there's another thing that Christians always come to me and say, oh, well, you know, if you die, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up, how about this? I'm going to end up in the exact same place that you're going to end up, because Christians aren't following no Bible. And I'm going to prove it to you. And again, this is why this stream, I'm telling you, this is probably going to have to be a part 2, part 3, because we have to talk about Christians and what they actually believe as opposed to what they say and what's in the text. Because according to the Bible, it says, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. Now, the Sabbath runs from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Now, Christians, they believe Sunday is the day of rest, even though Sunday is technically the first day of the week. May not be the first day of the working week, but it's the first day of the week. Yet and still, why do Christians celebrate Sunday? You know the reason why? Because way back when Christianity was getting its rise, it was in battle with the pagans, the pagan church, the Roman Empire. And in their belief systems, when you had, you know, the Jesus, all that kind of other stuff, their gods, Sunday was their day of worship. So what they did to keep the peace is that they changed the Sabbath day to a Sunday to keep the peace at the time. Such so that now Sunday has been universally recognized for some odd reason as the Lord's Day. Whereas we look at the Bible, that has never been the case. Now, this is one of the 10 commandments now. One of the 10 commandments says, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. But yet most of these Christians, other than the Seventh-day Adventist church, don't keep that commandments. Now, how can you call yourself a good Christian and you're not even following these commandments? This is what I mean when I say black people use religion differently. Because white people will try and use a framework. Black people say, I got faith. I believe God is real. I believe Jesus died for my sins, all this kind of other stuff. And that's the only single thing that they hold on to. They don't even follow the text. They ain't bothered about fornication, adultery. They ain't bothered about Christmas, because there's another thing as well. Christmas has no place in the Bible. There is no place in the Bible for Christmas. Same with Easter. Easter is not a religious festival that any of the Christians celebrated in the Old or the New Testament. Yet what we do as Christians, because we've been taught this slave colonial religious text, we believe it wholeheartedly. And I've had arguments about this, about why are you celebrating a festival that's not in your Bible? There's no reference to Christmas in the goddamn Bible. There's no reference to it. There was no reference to any situation where when Jesus was born, every single year they came and did the same junk with the turkey, the Christmas tree, all that BS. There is nothing in the Bible that says it. But yet Christians will go gung-ho for it and do that shit for whatever reason. I don't know. When asking why they do it, well, we have to celebrate it. No, you don't. You have to follow us in the Bible, but they don't. Yet they are so gung-ho about this faith that they don't even actually believe in. So it's just interesting when I hear black people so gung-ho with believing religion and believing all these texts, yet they don't even follow what they say they believe in. Such is the dichotomy in regards to this black person, black people, and religion, and how it hurts us. It hurts us mentally. It hurts us logically. You know, I really mean this. if you really believe these texts wholeheartedly, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with your intelligence. If you can believe the stories in this Bible without questioning, I really do. I really do. And I mean it in the nicest way possible, because I know there are people who will probably believe the text. But if you really, really, really break down a lot of these texts and these stories, you really have to be on some crack to believe that this could possibly have taken place. If you told somebody that a human being was swallowed by a fish for 3 days and 3 nights, didn't die, and was completely fine, you would say, that's a lie. You're a liar. If I said a man was born from a virgin, she didn't have sex, but she was impregnated, immaculate conception, you would call me a liar. If you believe that somebody could part the Red Sea, a river, you would call me a liar. If I told you that you heard a serpent speaking to you and told you to eat from the fruit of the tree, you would call me a liar. But yet and still, when it's involved in a religious text, wrapped around this umbrella, with faith, with hope, with everything chapped into it, what happens? We get what we saw in that video clip. We get these Negroes, because there were two of them who said the exact same thing because they institutionalized. And I was like this when I was younger, so I can't be too heavy on them, but this is what I was like. I couldn't see the wood for the trees. I was just like, no. Faith. It's like it's just institutionalized. It's just one of those the tactics that always keeps going on. That's what happens when we take on these religious situations. It's just crazy. And the only people who benefit, aren't you. The people aren't benefiting from this. It's normally the leaders who are benefiting from this for obvious reasons. You're paying your tithes, your offerings. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys all heard about what happened with SPAC Nation. To be fair, I should have, I'll be honest with you. Speaking about SPAC Nation, I should have got some clips. I should have got some intel on that in regards to that. But you all heard the situation going with SPAC Nation in regards to how people were donating blood to try and get money to feed the pastors, and how they would benefit from it, and all the kind of abuse and all the kind of things that would take place in that church. You see the madness that takes place. And I want to talk about the mega church that exists all throughout this globe, in parts of continent of Africa and US, South America, all these places where these mega churches reside. And it is nothing but absolute junk in what they teach, because they're not learning from the Bible. If they were actually following the Bible, like, let's be honest, Muslims, I give them credit. They follow the word, that the text that they actually believe in. So they would actually believe it and actually follow it out. Christians, you guys believe in faith, but don't actually believe anything in that Bible. I promise you don't. You probably believe in the resurrection, believe in Jesus, and that's it. Do what's well, do what's right. There's 2 things you may believe in, but that's it. If I was to really pinpoint what you believe in and what you do and what you celebrate, you guys ain't no Christians. So when everyone tells me about, what's gonna happen when you die, I'll be like this: the same place that you're going, I'm gonna be going there too. So don't you worry about me, worry about yourself. But this is what I mean when I say, has religion hurt the community? You goddamn right it's hurt the community. Has it helped us? It's helped us to be in the situation that we're in. And unfortunately, religion is not only the input of our situation, but it's also the output of our situation. And that's how deep religion goes. That's how deep it is. And all of it is because we don't know how to utilize it. We just don't know how to utilize it. It's one of our biggest weaknesses. One of our biggest weaknesses of people. We have so many things in our possession, whether it be, if you look at the continent of Africa and the minerals, the resources, the land mass, the different climates, the ability to be able to create goddamn everything that anyone needs to survive for the rest of his or her motherfucking life. All on that continent. Yet, what's happening with the people who utilize it? They can't. It takes an outsider's force to be able to say, look, Negro, this is how you do this. Look, Negro, this is how you do this. And it takes an outsider to come in and tell you, look, this is how you properly utilize it to set it up for your family. This is how you properly set things up to make sure that you can create all these nice technologies that these other groups have created with far motherfucking less. This is the same thing when it comes to religion. We don't utilize it in the right way at all. We utilize it in a way which it hurts us as opposed to help us. And this is what I'm saying. I will always stand by this statement. I have nothing against anyone who's religious. I have nothing against anyone who believes in whatever they believe in. I believe it is your right to believe in it. Fair play to you. Fair play to you. But when it comes to this life situation, the church, again, I can only speak from my experience, but the church don't seem to be the best way of being able to help you black people be able to manage in this world. It does not help you manage in this world at all. Because when it comes to things like economic power, when it comes to just power, when it be in certain industries, certain fields, whether it be how to get on in life, how to navigate around this world, their church, for the most part, can't help you do shit. Not the black church, anyway. Not the black church. All the black church will tell you is wait, hope, and pray, and all of a sudden, God is going to miraculously do that. I'm like, all I want to know is, how is that working out for you so far? How has that worked out for you so far? And at the moment, from what I can see, from the statistics, from the data, from the countries who are poor, from the countries who are rich, that has not worked out at all in the slightest. Or again, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But again, usually it's an individual basis. It's never like a group thing. Whereas when we saw the nations who generally aren't as religious, they're more atheist, or they're more logical thinking, they're more intellectual thinking. As a group, as a nation, as a people, they are so much more focused on things which how to make their society, how to make the things better. Which is one last thing before, because I'll put the Streamlord link because I want to open up the chat. I want to get your thoughts on this issue. Well, one last thing I wanted to bring up here, and which is, damn, I almost forgot my point I was going to make. But I almost forgot the point. It'll probably come back to me at all on this. But the StreamYard link is there. Let me know your thoughts on this issue, because this religious thing is such a powerful stranglehold over our people over the centuries. It's not even it's to actually unpack this. It's gonna take some sort of international warfare. It's not even real. So there's no way near I believe that most black people would even go into this sort of stuff. Again, most black people seem to be on that institutionalization of, you know, if their mother's a Christian, they're a Christian, and they get brought into the faith. That's how it always is. So that's always how a lot of religions are infused, and how religions are cultivated. And that's how it always happens. But you just have to step back and think: is this for the detriment, or is this for the positivity of our people? It is absolutely, unequivocally one answer, and it's been to the detriment of our own people. Because again, we do not know how to utilize religion in our favor. You see, white people have religion, but white people go to war with other people. Even Middle Easterns, they have religions, but you know what they do to it? I'm telling you, you say something bad about their religion, you say something about you would have to look at the situation that happened in, I want to say it was in Yorkshire somewhere. For the life of me, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was recent. And you have to look at just by showing a cartoon of one of their prophets, just showing a cartoon. I don't think it was any derogatory way, but just by doing that, to them, that was derogatory. They will go to war over that kind of stuff, but they'll still use it in a way that benefits them. Whereas with us, I'm telling you, we don't know how to use it for our own benefits. Whereas these other groups, they laugh all over us, they do all this kind of stuff. They will still get grimy, even though that they say they're meant to be religious, whether a Christian or a Muslim. They will still get grimy when it comes to economic power. They'll still step on you when it comes to these things which you're thinking, raw, I thought you meant to be a Christian. I thought you meant to be a Muslim. No, they are not. They don't use it in the way that you use it, and that is the difference. What's up, KB? How's it going?
How's it going, bro? You good?
Yeah, man, just heated, but all good.
No, bro, do you know what? This one, this one is easily going to be your best one, bro. Like, topic, subject, spot on, top marks, first of all, bro. Right. Everything you said, including the clip you showed, bro, I agree. Let me add my 2 pennies into this. And I like specifically how you attached black people and religion as well. And to me, it's like almost a perfect foil for what they want black people to become, encompass, think, etc. The church covers everything, yeah? It covers blind faith. So basically, do what you're told, Negro. Okay? You got let's take the Christian religion, the most obvious one, let's say. So you've got a white man savior, the head, the father, the you know, at the head. So white man still runs things. Don't forget your offerings and everything else. So again, this fits the black people liquid money mold. Give your money over to make your life better, because this is the only way. And then you bring up someone like I was busting joke in the chat, but I totally forgot about Spac Nation and Pastor Toby, and they are a perfect example of what you're talking about, bruv. When it comes to religion, I don't know why we have this, and it's not only us, right? But we seem to have the most blind faith when it comes to our religion. It's just the blinkers on. Now, like I've mentioned before, I know various other people, including other people of color. They are also, like you mentioned, very passionate about not the race, the religion, follow it to a T. But when it fits their narrative or when it benefits them, they adjust it.
Yep.
When it comes to us, we fight extra hard to defend it, even when it doesn't fully make sense, even when it doesn't particularly benefit us. One of the first things I thought, that's what I'm saying, there's so much you said that you've just killed it with. This whole concept of forgiveness. I don't know why black people, when it comes to whether it be, because for example, my family, my parents didn't get married, partly because of religious reasons. My mum's side are Christian, various forms. My dad's side of Muslim. So you can already imagine.
Yeah,
you can already imagine.
Conflict already. Even though apparently, because when I speak to Muslims, they are supposed to support the Bible. So it shouldn't be that much so, but it is though. So I definitely do get what you're saying. But when I speak to Muslims, this is what they tell me. Yeah, we believe in the prophets of the Bible. It's just different. So they're supposed to be quite in unison, but I know it's not. Continue.
No way. No. It's okay, bro. And even when you look at, like, if you look at the two religions, okay, obviously both my parents are Ghanaian, but like me and Vincent were talking about in the chat, but my dad's side of the family are more from the northern part of Ghana. So if you know where sort of the northern part of Ghana is situated, that's going towards Nigeria, etc. Because Nigeria is like northeast of Ghana-ish.
Right.
So the more north you seem to go, the more, Islamic sort of religions you will have, that you may find in Ghana. Otherwise, most people are Christian, Jehovah's Witness, Pentecostal, whatever. So even when it came down to that, right? But out of those two religions, none of them are really, let's say, black. But let's take the example of my family, right? All in all, who won out with that quote unquote fight? The Muslim side, the side that we really don't identify as black. So even that side, it was basically a case of my mum converts over, which she did take some traits with her. For example, we've always eaten halal food. There's some things that my mum takes into her, even though she's not Muslim.
All right.
But even that, do you know what I mean? I think that was just, I don't know what it was. And then she had me and then all the rest of it. But they still won on out, right?
So can I ask you a question then? So
yes.
Who's an individual then? Because it's obviously conflicted already from the get-go.
Exactly.
When it comes to your upbringing in regards to what was taught, because if I'm recalling right, if she's doing eating like halal meat and things like nature at all, that's one side of it. But then all of a sudden you have that she's meant to be Christian. So how was that in terms of what you were taught and how your I suppose thought patterns evolved when you were younger about what to believe and that kind of stuff?
Well, do you know what's interesting is I didn't get to go still going with what you're saying with black people and religion either way, because these are two different religions here, none of which we can really say are our religions, right? And let alone having the questions in terms of the situations between the two families, that was one thing on its own, let alone the whole religious part, which were always brought up. And for example, let's say on both sides of the family, my grandma on my mom's side, my grandma on my dad's side, and a few of my dad's sisters, they were the ultra religious ones. Like, do you know what I mean? Like ultra, like, and still to this day. Now, when it came down to me having questions about either faith, they were dismissed immediately. Even more so on, if I'm going to be honest, the Christian side. The Muslim side, if anything, and I'm not saying it's any better, but they more had the thing of, they tried to, I have to tread very carefully when I say this because of how the was developed, right? And you'll get what I mean. But when I think back now, it's almost felt like they tried to recruit me. Does that make sense? That's why I'm saying I'm trying to be careful. Because I don't mean like that, but I was always on that side. Oh, come mosque. When I was getting older, little things like teenagers. Oh, Muslim girls will like you. They're pretty. It was always trying to be like, come to this side type of thing. When it came to the Christian side, it was, we are this. we are Pentecostal or we're Jehovah's Witness or we're Christian. That's it. We go to church, we follow this, we follow that. But when it came down to questioning, out of the two, I would definitely say the Christian side gave me more resistance in terms of questioning anything that wasn't in the norm. These could be little things like now I'll show you how religious I grew up, right? So you've got things like your first, your song books, and you've got your, we've all had these books of all the story, the Sunday school ones, and I can't remember the name of them, but they're all the thick, the hardback books, and even looking through those, and they've got all these stories, just like you're saying, yeah, and they were watered down child versions of some of the biblical stories, and not every single one, but little things like, I remember me and my sister asking when we was younger, and it wasn't even bad questions, but it's little things like, where's all the black people in the book? And you literally get radio silence. And I'm not asking, I wasn't a rude child. I was an inquisitive and curious child, yes. Because you had this all-encompassing thing that everybody that I knew, and bear in mind my peers, and I've got especially with the older people in my family, they're very traditional and strong-willed and imposing. So these were my figureheads. I was learning from them, and they all seem to be following this one thing like zombies. So I had questions. So it's like, okay, first of all, everybody I can see, all of us are black. So you give me this book, that's fine, but where's the black people? Radio silence.
And the thing is as well, because I remember having these kind of conversations as well, and not only is it radio silence, but when you dig deep into it, a lot of times when you look at the Bible, and this is another thing about what happens, the Bible is not actually kind to black people, or at least how it was taught to us in regards to I don't know, Ham in the Bible, in terms of Noah's sons, he was cursed. This is why a lot of times black people, I put, are we cursed? This is one of the things which people had always said about us as people as to why we are the situation that we're in. Apparently, it's almost the reason why we're black, because depending on what kind of sort of viewpoint you've listened to or heard, there's a viewpoint that says because of what happened with Ham, and the story goes, Noah, Ham's father, was naked, and Ham saw his nakedness and laughed at him. And apparently, because of that, Noah cursed Ham and turned him black. That's why Ham now is black.
Wow, this is what I'm trying. Oh, this I can't deal, bro. Like, what is this?
A twistedness. So, just thinking about how we take on these religions, which a lot of times historically, now this is in the Bible doesn't say this, but this is how it gets just transfused with us. But even just all the other black, or what we know to be black nations beforehand in the Bible, they've all been either cursed, they've all been trodden on. The Bible's always said, I'm going to absolutely annihilate Ethiopia. It's going to be called the backside of Egypt. It's going to be a byword. I mean, Ethiopia is no longer the powerhouse on Egypt like it was beforehand, but these were like stereotypically known as black nations. So all the black people or the black tribes in the Bible, whether it be Hittites, Jebusites, all these typically black nations were all nations which God had destroyed in the Bible. So we had never had, as people, a very, very positive validation when we go into where the black people in the Bible, because I'll tell you where they are.
It goes back far. When you say it does.
So deep, I'm telling you. So when you ask that question, I was like, yep, I already know what you're going to say, because this is what happens in the church. And it's just like, silence.
Bro, can I bring this to something? I know we're going to jump all over the place with this, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Even as an adult, right? And, I see Fiona. Funny enough, hello. You might like this. You might actually like this, because I will say this. More as an adult, right? I've noticed as well, right? The whole church thing. This has been some of the places where this whole interracial thing's come from. I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest.
You have to elaborate on this one. This will be interesting. I'm
interested. I've noticed male and female side. So, but a lot of the black people, unless you're going to a proper all black church, and I'm talking all black, yeah. Like, and to be honest, I don't see much of those anymore. A lot of the ones I see, this is kind of mixed, right? The ones I've seen. A lot of the people that go there have white partners. I've seen this quite a lot. And I found that quite interesting. Enough that I noticed. And I thought, okay, is this where some of this is coming from? I see. Now, if you think about it, it's not even, because I thought, no, okay, the church does have its own thing, but the church does have this sort of, can you say, barricade of not being too influenced by worldly society, but within its own bubble. But then I thought about it, right? And I thought, this ain't even society influence. This is what we're talking about. When they look up at the picture on the wall of the main person, like we were just saying, that person is white. Yep. When they look in all these books and all the people you read about, they tend to be all white. So it would change that sort of thinking there towards it, like towards that them sort of people, that they are kind of superior as well.
No, you're 100%.
Sorry, go.
You're 100% correct, man. In regards to what you say, I'm just gonna say hello to chat because a few people have come in.
Yeah. Please do, man.
So I forgot to really look at the chat. I was just going on my little monologue. What's up, B Money? How's it going? Say hello to yourself. If you're new, please make sure you like, subscribe if you're new. The Ank, I don't think I've seen you. Religion's giving our black community some false positive hope. Yep, absolutely. That hope that kills. Michael, how's it going? Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Fiona, how's it going? Appreciate your here. Appreciate you chiming in. Appreciate your interactions. Continue, bro.
No problem, bro. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. So, as an adult, I've seen a lot of interracial couples come from the church, and a lot of it derives in that sort of thought process, like you were saying earlier. Oh, we don't see color. It seems to be in that same sort of thinking process, and it's like, no, that's rubbish. You blatantly do. You blatantly do see color, and it's quite insulting.
Yep.
But I've seen a lot of it derived from there. So a lot of it, this interracial stuff, isn't just the society last 10 years, last 15 years, social media pushing a certain narrative. It's the other section as well, the religious section, which actually can be quite conservative at times. There's a whole interracial thing with there. And if you look at those couples as well, it's one of those situations still when it all seems to be interracial couples that, be it the black male or the black female, they tend to be more towards the white side of the couple. If that makes sense, they go towards the white side. They're not following, that person not following them. They're going that way. So it's still us following onto them.
100%. Right? And that's the thing, isn't it? Because if like you're saying, what does that do to your self-esteem as a person? At the end of the day, you can say what you want to say about you believing in God and all this kind of other stuff, and you don't care about color, even though, again, like we said, we know it's BS. But what do you think that does to the self-esteem of an individual and the self-esteem of a group? If the man who you're saying is supposed to be your Lord and Savior, he does not look like you, he does not have any, he does not relate to you, all that kind of stuff. If you saw him
claim you nothing.
If you saw him walking today on this earth, a lot of these black people will probably see him as the, I don't know, the oppressor. Would he still see him as? But yet this is supposed to be your God. And I'm just like, that is a tough pill to swallow. And this is why sometimes I believe when it comes to Islam, they don't even believe in showing it. But even they will believe. I don't know if I'm not asking this question though. I bet they'll believe if I ask them about their gods, because Muhammad, that is an Arabic name. You see what I mean? It's not like a European name, even though they believe in the Bible. That's what they said. A lot of the prophets they believe come from the Bible. Their main prophet is Muhammad. Muhammad is an Arabic name, so that validates them. You see what I'm saying? So their main prophet who retaught the Bible or said that the Bible was wrong and they retaught it, it was all based on their cultural identity. This is why they went to Saudi Arabia, Mecca. Mecca was never in the Bible. It's always been Israel in the Bible, but Israel is not an Arabic nation. Saudi Arabia. You see what I mean? You see how every single religious group, for their own cultural identity and self-esteem, has always needed to validate themselves, because you cannot sell to a people, except for us, to worship a God who has no relation or any identity that looks like you. It does not work, except for in our case, when it comes to colonization, slavery, by the sword. So when it comes to Islam or Christianity, all the same way. But that's the thing. I think it does to self people like that. It's absolutely crazy.
Let me ask you a question as well. And again, this is something that's always been from my sort of perspective anyway. For some reason, when it comes to and I think you touched on this earlier, the whole concept of the forgiveness part, oh, black people really took that part on. Now, what's interesting is that we have that thought process when it comes to, let's be honest, everyone else. But when it comes to each other, we don't have that. But but when it comes to doing it for the religion part and forgiving, let's be honest, it was almost like, forgive what we're about to do to you, because we're gonna, we're gonna use this book to brainwash you. We're gonna force you for it to be your main thing, so much so that you're gonna be so passionate about it that we're actually gonna step back. You're gonna teach this to your kids. They're gonna teach this to their kids. They're gonna teach this to their kids. And dare anyone say anything otherwise, you're gonna be so ingrained by it that you're gonna defend it to the helm. But yeah, you're gonna be very forgiving towards us. I said this in the chat. Why, I don't know if it was the first one, why is there a slave ship called Jesus? Can some, look, when I ask this question, people are like, why are you starting trouble? It's a simple question. It's not down to opinion. This is a fact. This is a documented fact. There was a slave ship called Jesus. Can someone explain this to me, please? No, no one said, no one can have an explanation. So what is this? There's little tiny things like this. Like, it's documented fact that we were enforced religions. We were enforced a Christian religion. Our names were changed. Our language was changed. This is documented fact. Not even white people deny this. So how come we can't open up Pandora's box? A lot of South America was enforced Catholics.
Oh yeah.
They have what's that big statue called in Brazil?
Oh, it's the Jesus. Oh, it's Jesus statue.
You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm on about. I think it's Mary or something. You know the statue.
In Brazil. In Brazil. I think it's
in Brazil.
Christ Redeemer or something like that. I think it's called.
But you know the one I'm on about.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Enforced. So everybody knows this, but yet there's no question that this is the way it must go forward. Look, I've known people that have personally, and I will not tell anybody not to believe, have something to believe in. And I'm not saying I don't believe in there being a higher power. I do. Right?
You know, I was going to say that. Sorry to cut you. I was going to say that because I wanted to clear that up, because I do believe, and again, this is part of, and this is the kind of conversation I also wanted to ask a question to you as well, because part of the things that I do believe in is more of us as a people are more spiritually aware as opposed to all this other religiously texty stuff in regards to like Christianity, Islam, that I think has no part in us as a people. But I do believe in there's some sort of higher power and higher force out there. I also don't know what it is. I believe there is something out here. I believe that we are, to say that all this is by chance evolution, I can't believe it, but maybe I just want to believe that there's something out there greater than all of us that's going to hopefully answer some of the questions that I don't think science will even ever be able to know. But so I just want to put that out there. I do believe that there is some sort of higher power. What is it? Is it the nature? Is it the earth? God only knows. But I do believe in something. But I definitely, in regards to like Christianity and Islam, you can't sell me with them that kind of stuff. I mean, let me ask you this question, KB, because I don't know how religious you were brought up with, but some of the stories in the Bible that you read, or even in the Quran or whatnot, could you believe those stories? Some of these stories that came about, could you believe that?
Bro, can I say two things to that? Because you actually was perfectly segue into what I was going to actually say, so that's perfect. Some of the stories, okay, let me say this before I say the second part, because the second part irks me, right? The second part really irks me. Right, some of the stories I don't necessarily believe. However, saying different from that, if they are true, I believe some of them are incredibly unreasonable in the least. Yeah?
Yep.
Because are you trying to tell me, for example, that this, well, a higher being that loves us, right? And I'm not saying there isn't one that does, but in its ways, they have been presented. For example, would ask a man to prove how much you believe and love me, take your son to the forest, lay him down, and stab him for me. What?
I know.
That one blew my mind when I was a child. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why? And secondly, I mean, this is where I have a conflict, because I get the faith part, but there's no way you're going to get me to stab my son. And this is where we have a conflict. So would I be deemed as a non-believer? Like if I was Abraham, would I be the non-believer? Do you know what I mean?
You saw that black guy in that clip. You were in that clip. He would have said that's not faith, and this is it. This is it. And
he would have shot me down for saying this.
Absolutely, because you're right in saying that is an unreasonable request. But unfortunately, because of how religion's been taught to us, yes, we would have to have faith to actually kill our own child to somehow prove to God that we are actually on his side. Which, by the way, is a God who created us. It's a God who should be telling us what's good. You know what I mean? We're not the ones who created us. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. But yeah, that is exactly what Christians will believe in, because by faith and even if it's unreasonable, it seems to be the more unreasonable the story is, the more faith they seem to have about it. I'm like, how does that make any sense?
And you can question it even less.
Yeah.
The more doesn't make sense. Let me mention the second one, because the second one is the one that's always got me since I've been a kid. The whole concept of Satan offering Jesus the world. You know, the whole concept of that. Yep. Took him to a mountaintop, you know, in the various versions of it, showed him the world, basically offered him everything. Jesus said no. But at the same token, there was this whole thing between Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whatever you want to call him, Diablo, whatever you want to call him, and God. And God was like, look, you've got this, I'm going to destroy you after this certain time. So, and him saying, look, I can make all these people turn against you, your whole human race that you love, these peasants, these ants I despise. Watch, I can do it within the time you say you're going to destroy me. I know you're going to kill me. I can't do anything about it. I've got however long. Watch what happens. And by the way it was explained to me, this is how I interpreted it. God was like, okay, go on, do your worst, but I bet you can't. So, in no uncertain words, I used to question, so are you guys trying to tell me that God and Satan made a deal? Like, where are we going with this? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, is that not a fair question? You trying to tell me they made a deal?
Oh, you know, you've just said something. It's so perfect in regards to what I was thinking, and for some reason,
bro, do you know how much beef my family hate? I bring this up so much, yeah. My grandma wants to kill me for saying shit like that, really? Bro. Yeah, go on, bro. I think I'm done for the minute.
This is the key when it comes to this as well. When do we hold? If we say these stories are true, then why aren't we holding God account for the things that we see in the earth? Because this is what Christians will say: it's the devil this, it's the devil that. But hold on a second. God allowed the devil to do what he's doing. God is allowed, because at the end of the day as well, what we have to remember, if we take it all the way back, Satan rebelled against God in heaven. That's how the story goes, apparently. Now, instead of God actually destroying the devil and actually quelling the situation, what does he do? He sends him down and his minions to earth. And what do he do in earth? He creates more havoc. So whose fault is it, if we believe the Bible to be true, why we're in this mess that we're in? Why there's so-called sin? Why we have this separation? Why we have all this crap? Why Jesus had to come down and die for our sins? All because your God that you believed in didn't do what he should have done. He should have destroyed him the moment he decided to usurp your authority. What did you do? You sent him down to earth, and the rest is history, as they said. And even
he sent him down to chill with us. Seriously, bro, come on, bro.
I'm just like, hold on a second. And this is how does this make any sense? And then all this crap that's happened apparently because of sin, because the devil managed to deceive the woman at the fruit, Adam at the fruit, and the rest is just history, according to the Bible now, according to the Bible. And this is what they believe in. But yet when I ask these kind of questions similar to you, KB Jones, now I didn't get the fierce response that you got. I'll definitely agree on that. But again, do you know what they say to me? It is not our place to know what God is doing. It is not our place. Who are we to know what God's thoughts? Who are we to know what God is going to do? We are just mere mortals. We are his creations. We are basically not supposed to ask these questions. That's basically what I got. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, when black people take on these religions, particularly
it's so dismissive. My gosh.
Oh my God. You trying to ask these logical questions now, because it's a very logical question. That's the hold on a second. Am I reading what I've just read here? And we're meant to be a person, narcissist, a person who lets this stuff happen. And yet all I'm going to get in return when I speak to Christians is, this is what it says in the Bible. I believe it to be true. If you don't believe it to be true, you ain't a believer. You're this, you're that, you're there. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my days. This happens. And again, a spirited debate. And in the case of you, you seem to have been disowned by your grandma.
Yeah, bro. She's not on it. Oh, mate, she's not on it, bro. Like she won't have a bar of it. And like my mum and her siblings, some of them, the younger they've got, the less they seem to have been like indoctrinated. But the older ones are not on it. It's like if I was to ask something like again, I'm asking these as a child, so you can imagine children ask really logical questions. Like, what if it doesn't make sense? If you're talking crap to a child, they're gonna think no, they don't make sense. Because I used to think that okay, let's take for example the situation with Sodom and Gomorrah that happened. You had to destroy it, start again. This right? Okay, God is just all meant to be this all-knowing, all-being, created everything. But the way you lot are making it sound is like God is like things happen on the earth and God doesn't know what's going to happen. It's like it gets to a certain point. It's like, oh, what the hell are you lot doing down there? Okay, this has gone too far. I have to destroy it. I don't understand. Myth Twist said something very interesting in the chat. Let's take the Sodom and Gomorrah case. Now, I'm not saying Sodom and Gomorrah shouldn't have been destroyed. If it was as immoral as they said it was, then whatever, right? But you can't say, oh, you guys have free will, do what you like. These are the keys. So if you happen to, it's almost like he said, if you happen to decide to take these up, then I'm here. But otherwise, you've got free will. But within your free will, if you break those commandments, then I'm going to punish you. So which one is it?
100%. Do you know what? When I was studying psychology in A level, there's something called determinism versus free will, which is the conversation which you've had here with Myth Twist. So determination, for those who don't know, is the illusion of free will. It's that your path is already premeditated for you. The free will that you think you have is already been established, has already been premeditated. You just have the illusion of free will. Whereas free will is real free will, where no one knows what's going to happen. You just have the ability to do exactly what you want. Go left, go right, go forward, stay still. That is complete free will. Now, in answer to your question, in order to believe in faith, it's determinism. It's not free will, because you're 100% correct. If God knows what's about to happen tomorrow and God knows this and God's telling you to do this, at the end of the day, you haven't got free will. Let's be honest. You have determinism because God is because your step has already been ordered. God knows what you're about to do. So there's absolutely nothing that could be that you're doing which he doesn't already know. So this idea of you have free will is a load of BS, because at the end of the day as well, if you don't do what he says he's going to do, guess what? You're going to pay the price. So is it free will? No, it's not free will. It's an illusion of free will.
Exactly.
And that's what it's an illusion. So even when I bring that up to Christians about this kind of stuff, it is just an illusion. But I'm just like, oh yeah, but God's giving you free will. No, he's not. How can someone give you free will and then if you don't do it, you get punished? I'm like, that is absolutely
just ridiculous.
Yeah, and people use some, and again, Christians, this is how Christians work. I've debated a lot of Christians. They use these silly tactics about, well, in the world you can kill somebody, and that's free will. I'm like, well, no, you can't. That's why they have a law in place. You can't kill somebody. Free will would you be to kill somebody and no one do anything about that? That's free will. By having laws in place, that gives a framework where you have to follow. We as people are governed by rules. Our whole planet Earth is governed by the laws of physics. It rotates on an axis. It goes around the sun. There's laws of physics that bound the Earth in place. It doesn't have free will. It's all governed. It can only do certain things, but you just see what I'm saying. So we as people are governed by rules. And it's just when I debate with Christians, it is absolutely crazy, man. But to believe in religion, you cannot believe in free will. You just can't. You can't believe in ultimate free will.
No way.
Not in the free will, which, at least from our perspective, at least a bit more free will. You just don't believe in it. You can't.
Even the fact of, my gosh, look. Even if you look at let's say the commandments themselves, right? Little things like the commandments and the whole concept of sin. Again, I remember asking a lot of these questions as a child, and I still have a lot of these questions as an adult because these still haven't been answered, or I've got even more confused as an adult. The whole concept of the 10 Commandments. So I used to ask little things like, oh, okay, so which one is the numbered 1 to 10? Oh, so is number 1 the more important? And they're like, no, they're all sins. So I said, okay, so does that mean I can steal something and somebody can kill somebody and that's the same? And they said no. I was like, so what? God, like, will I be punished the same? And they're like, well, no. When it comes down to we're getting judgment, you'll be judging each one. So I said, okay, are they in order then? They're like, no, there isn't an order. So even when it comes to things like that, yeah, they're confused. Even with the whole concept of sin. So okay, are you telling me if I just go and repent, which I go to church, I have this whole God, please forgive me, and so and so and so. I'll I'll change my ways. You will be forgiven. I don't think so. Black people, a lot, for example, and I'm glad you bring up black people. A lot of people, and I've seen I know it's been said before, but even with this whole go to the club on a Saturday, go to church on a Sunday. Do you know how much times I've seen that? And some of the most out there people, and they're like, what you know, I speak to them on a Sunday, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to church with my mom. I'm like, what, you go to church? Bruv, what you was doing last night? Seriously. And it's this whole, oh, we can wash away, you know, we can wash it away. I mean, wash it away to where? I mean, bruv.
You know, that's one of the, a lot of non-church people always call Christians hypocrites, because you're right. It's almost a case where they're a Christian on Sunday, but the rest of the days of the week, they're just, you know, doing whatever they can do, you know, go to the club on Saturday, wake up, go to church on a Sunday. And it's just like, what do you actually believe in? And this is one of the things which I was saying, and Myth Twist, I know you were sort of alluding to this as well. It says, don't worship idols, but they celebrate Christmas, Easter, which have figures they worship their pagan holidays. Absolutely. This whole thing goes back to the conversation where a lot of black Christians or people who believe in these faiths, they don't actually believe in it. They seem to believe in the idea of it. And a lot of times it precedes all logic, all thought process, all thought patterns. So when you try and check them on it, they have like some sort of mental breakdown. I don't know if you were here at the beginning. I showed a less than 10-minute clip of how when white people who are Christians talked about their faith, they talked about how they use it as a framework, whereas black people, even though they do the same thing, because at the end of the day, they celebrate all these idols. They go to church on the club on Saturday, go to church on Sunday. So let's be honest, they use it the exact same way if we're going to keep it really real, especially today's Christians. So I'm just like, they seem to go gung-ho for something that they don't actually even follow. If you look at the letter of the law that they're supposed to be following, it's absolutely crazy. But that's just how I've almost like, yeah, it is what it is right now, because I'm so used to it. It's crazy that this is what it is, but this is how people operate. And a lot of times I do believe, and I don't know if you have this viewpoint at all, about before Christianity, before Islam came on the shores of the continent of Africa, I believe us people had more spiritual aspects to us in regards to how we moved, how we walked, which was more in line with, you could say, nature, esoteric, more deeper understanding of us as a people. It wasn't surrounded by the obviously religious texts right now. And I believe because of that, which is still ingrained in our DNA, it just gets fused in whatever we do. We see it when it comes to our music, TV, film series, how we talk, how we move, how we feel, how we rationalize things. And again, when it comes to inheriting other religions. So I think a lot of it is down to other people, we are just generally spiritual as opposed to religious, which is two different things. Do you think we're more spiritual? I don't know what your thoughts are on spirituality at all.
Do you know what? I can agree with that totally. I think we are definitely more spiritual, which is definitely to, if it was used in the correct manner, it would be great. Because one thing I give us for black people, when we're passionate about something, we go all in. That's one thing I will give us, right? Yeah. But the only problem is when it's the wrong thing, and a lot of the time when it's the wrong thing, or at least the wrong thing for us, I should say, obviously it's to our detriment. Now, the thing is that what's really deep to me about black people and religion in general, right? And the fact that, and like you rightly brought up, it's like all the different sort of countries, nations, you want to say even races, seem to have an identifiable religion to them. And we don't seem to. An identifiable deity, name, basis, etc., thought process, and we generally don't seem to have one. There are those out there that seem to know who we are at heart, or originally. Reason why I say this is things like you got the Black Madonna, which I think is in the Vatican. Things like that. And in one of the German, I think it's in Germany, one of the churches, they've got a painting of a certain person as well. So it's like certain people know who we actually are, or there's more to at least to it, because they've got these sort of, you know, these religious artifacts in their possession but away. They don't really make them public. So that I'm surprised more religious black people don't delve into that. I'm surprised that there's so much of us, because I've met some of us, and don't get me wrong, as I say, the passion, and I can understand why people get sucked in, because a lot of it is the passion. It's what it can be, it can feel very communitized. I grew up around it, so I get it. But no one seems to be questioning like the train everyone's going on. And some of these questions that could be asked are very simple, albeit controversial, but very simple. And I don't understand why people don't look into it more, because unfortunately, when I found out about things like the Black Madonna and things like sort of, you know, black, I don't want to say black deities, or, you know, ideals or whatever, or the names or concepts of them, I haven't actually found these out from black sources, unfortunately. I've stumbled into them from, let's say, European sources, and it's like, wow, okay, I didn't even know this, you know, and it's quite sad, really.
You're 100%
Do you know
correct.
what? Yeah,
That was a hell of a good segue as to what I want to talk about when it comes to us as a people and and religion. And I just want to go to the chat because there's something in the chat which is actually making me laugh a little bit. And Myth, are you church drill? Church drill. Now,
yeah.
The trap music. Are you serious? Now I want to say
you know, Pastor Toby and them, Spac Nation, they had a drill group. What were they called? TK, what's the name? Was Hope Dealers. Thank you, Myth Twist. Hope Dealers.
Hope Dealers. Oh my,
yeah, bro.
Man, Hope Dealers. Blood.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Do you know this is what it is with Christians. This is what it is as people. Do you know what kills me? We actually change ourselves based on what the world does, as opposed to, let's say, what happens is the church changed themselves based on what happened in the world, as opposed to looking at the Bible. This is how I know these guys ain't about nothing. Because how the heck are you going to justify having a church drill Hope Dealers? I mean, even the name itself, I'm like, bro,
you need to see them. Some of them got bellies on and everything. I'm not joking.
I'm
not lying. Oh, bro. See, look, bro. It's mate. What, bro?
Days.
Yeah.
I'm looking. This is that foolishness, man. This is that foolishness, and I'm just like this. Again, I got to say this because, again, for people who are listening, watch on the playback, I need to say this again. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, I have nothing against the religion. A lot of times I do believe this. The essence of a lot of these religions, I have absolutely no problem with. I believe a lot of times it is for the good. It has good tenets, things I disagree with for sure. But a lot of the essence of a lot of these religious texts are some of them are good and common sense. Treat your neighbor well. Obviously, love thy neighbor as love thyself. Do the right thing. There are a lot of things in there which I don't think anyone would disagree and say, if you want to use this as a guideline to say, I'm going to be a better person, I've got absolutely zero, nothing against that. You know what I mean? I do agree with that. But you know, when it takes onto another form where we're talking about something which apparently now is going to be the manuscript for life, this is where it takes its turn. And this is where, again, this is why I have to come at people who believe in this kind of stuff, because it's not just about again, with white people, they use it more as a framework to help them in their lives. Black people, no, this is their salvation. This is the ticket that they are using in order to get everlasting life. This is something completely different. And this is why when we see these things like the things, flipping Hope Dealers and all this kind of other stuff and all these things that get infused, I'm like, what part of the faith is this? I mean, what part of the game is this? And I'm just like, we seriously have an issue here when it comes to how we take on these things and how we fuse these things in regards to nonsense. Some of the nonsense. It is just mad. But one thing I want to oh, sorry, do you want to say on that? Sorry, KB.
No, go on, bro. Carry on.
Because what I was going to do, I was going to sort of transition back to the Black Madonna, because you mentioned the point about how you heard about the Black Madonna and some of the depictions of Christ, and obviously the Virgin Mary as being darker skinned as opposed to light skinned. Because one of the things I've always wanted to know is, do you? We always seem to want to validate ourselves, which is so funny in regards to who we are as a people. So I was always interested to find out, how is it possible? Why is it that black people because black people, I've heard for the last few years now, have said that Jesus is black. I don't know if you've heard all this sort of stuff. Jesus is now black. The Israelites are all black, especially the Hebrew Israelites. And I always think it's that thing that we try and do, where we try and use situations, some evidence to try and validate ourselves in a text, which to me, it has nothing to do with us as a people. And this is one of these examples where I see it, where I suppose another example would be the Black Madonna, where black people use that, because just because something is black, it doesn't mean it was African black, if that makes sense. Because there are people in like England, India, and Bangladesh who have darker skin than even I do. I'll be honest with you. But they're not Negroid, they're not sub-Saharan African of descent. You know what I mean? They're not what we consider black. So I always think a lot of times what we try and do, because of our self-esteem issues, is that we try and validate ourselves in whatever religion we go into, which is why we say Jesus is black, this is black, the Bible's black, that's this, the Quran is this, that kind of stuff. And it's always this, because we're so lost as a people in these religions, are we trying to validate ourselves, do you think?
Do you know what? 100%, yeah. We're trying to grasp onto anything that can be labeled as an identifier. And it's not fully our fault. It's not fully our fault. A lot has been taken from us. But you see, this is where we need discernment, because things like religion, right? I think people a lot of the time, black people a lot of the time underestimate how much religion, how big a part of religion played a role in us losing our identity. I think a lot of people don't acknowledge that at all. And this is where I think what a lot of the problem is. It was a very big part of stripping away of what we were. Now, we're so far removed from it, what we originally were. To be honest, we don't 100% know. We're trying to debate on it now. And again, it's unfortunate. But it really annoys me how much people overlook or don't seem to consider or even dismiss how much religion played a part. Yes, war, slavery, different things play the part, and the general concept of racism and the natural enemies, and I get that. But things like religion, I think religion's quite an obvious one to have seen, to be honest. We've had more, I think black people have had more things done to us that have been hidden, and we're only finding out now compared to how much religion was imposed on us. That one was pretty open. Right. And to me, we don't seem to have too much pushback on it, which is quite surprising, because the facts are there. This was imposed onto us. So the fact that we're so embracing of it, and very much like he's pointing out even on the program, so much so that we are now the passionate defenders of religion now. We passionately defend it. When we're arguing or debating with let's say a white person or a European person, for example, on the same religion, on their own religion, like you saw, we're not having any of it. We're not having any of it. But
absolutely. And one of the things which I wanted to bring up, and this is a segue, or a nice segue, and Vincent, I know this is something that you've been discussing in this, is that I think part of the reason why we're so gung-ho, why it's so, I'm going to say, easy for us to not only take on these religions, but to be gung-ho for it, is because two things playing a part. With not poverty and intellect. Now, when I was young, I was always told this by people who weren't actually religious, that religion is for the dumb or the poor. Now, we all
you're not wrong, though.
I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it 100% real. Religion has always been cited as for the dumb or the poor. Now, we've been poor for all of our lives. So because it provides that hope, and we know black people love miracles. So it's such an easy sort of fail-safe, because at the end of the day, that's why I showed that statistic that says the most intellectual nations are usually more atheist in their thinking and their view patterns. And they were traditionally the white nations. Even the UK, who said to be a Christian country, they're like 8th in terms of it. And I'm just like this.
Do you know what? That surprised me when you read that out,
The thinking pattern. Things evolve, people evolve, the world evolves, it changes. And at the end of the day, there's some hard truths that need to be said. I mean, people always come to like Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was a Christian, but I'm telling you, he's one of those ones which he didn't let that stop him from actually proving a scientific fact about how the earth came to be, how we as a species evolved, how we get from point A to B to C to D all the way down to Z. It didn't stop white people from still pushing the needle. This is the problem. Whereas with us as a nation, us as a people, I'm sorry to say it, we're not the smartest. We are not the smartest group. Cut that shit. I'm pros we're not the smartest. And we're damn sure aren't the richest. Those two things in comparison, boom. We are one of the most religious people on planet Earth. Because you can sell this kind of crap to people who are the uninitiated. I'm telling you. Now, I know people always say, but other people are religious. Yeah, but I've showed the video. We ain't that religious like white people are. We ain't that.
But no,
serious. I was fighting it for the younger because again, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was on it and I was just like, I had to go through a lot of searching in regards to this kind of stuff because I'm like, I even look at it back now thinking, how is it possible I can believe these sort of things in wholeheartedly, so truthfully? Again, there's some things in the Bible which I do like. I like the way how it just the words in the Bible, how it formulates, especially if you look at the King James Version. I love it. So quoting it as a quotation text or using it as some sort of poetry or using it just for sort of life guidance. There's certain principles and foundations I do not absolutely disagree with. It's just some things are common sense. But again, when we use it in the way how we use it, it's just dangerous and it's hurt us as a people and hurt us as a community because we're just not evolved. White people, what they do is that they will evolve with the Bible. So, for example, homosexual pastors, allowing homosexual, that's something that if you look at the Bible, that should never be allowed. But what happened? Because the white world, they changed, the secular world, it changes, they change with it. And this is the kind of things what happened where we don't like to evolve things, where white people push the needle. And again, we know that shouldn't be allowed in the Bible, but again, white people clearly have shown they ain't that religious. Whereas, yeah, it's just one of the things which is just, it's always dawned on me that there's a reason why we seem to be more religious is because we're just in unfortunate situations and we just, you can sell.
Let me ask you a question, bro. Let me ask you a question in relevance to that. Do you think it's because we are generally more gullible?
Yeah. And that's part of the intellect part. That's part of the intellect. I mean, again, I think a lot of it's sometimes out of desperation. I'll be real and I'll be fair.
That hope again. That hope.
Because let's be honest. And again, I got to be fair and balanced. It's not as if black people globally have not been through a lot. I got to be fair. It's not as if, again, colonialism, slavery, the sword, it's forced religion on us. No question. So I understand from a historical viewpoint that there are things which you could not control. If someone forced a religion on you, then there's nothing you can really do about that. But there comes a stage right now where you think to yourself, flipping heck, how is it so many years later it's still this strong? And a lot of it is, when you said to your gullibility point, we just seem to be gullible. You can sell a lot to us. We seem to just believe in it. And a lot of it is because of the hope and because we're in dire straits. Is it the chicken and the egg? Is it because of religion, or was religion just because of, because of this situation that we're in? And a lot of it can't be answered that way. We would have used religion as a tool to try and liberate us, even though that was the tool that enslaved us, you could argue. You see what I mean? It's it is one of those real minefields when you really look at it. But for sure, we do seem to be quite gullible. But a lot of times, to be fair and balanced, is because we're in probably situations where it doesn't favor us. So people like that are going to have to use other techniques and coping mechanisms. It's a coping mechanism.
Right, I've got another question for you, bro, and everybody listening. This is a great topic, by the way, bro. Fantastic live. Bruv, what do you think about the concept of, two sort of questions, but they're quite similar. First of all, and I know we have they're more in the States than here, but like mega churches. Right. And secondly, I've heard this sort of statement before, and I took it away with me, and I was like, they've kind of got a point. So basically, a statement that the whole concept of a lot of the reverend, the pastor, the main head person tends to not only be in charge of what happens, but tend to be the most financially well off, almost in like a pyramid scheme type of system.
Oh yeah.
So the first question to you and generally everybody else is, what do you think about the whole mega church thing? Go as much as you want in that. And then also, do you believe that church either is turning into, or can be a kind of, MLM, pyramid scheme, etc.? What do you think?
Right. So I suppose, yeah, the two questions are pretty much tied into my response. So yes, the church, in terms of the mega churches, I've always seen that as a pyramid scheme, a business. I mean, if you look at church and how it's registered as a charity, which means, funny enough, they don't pay tax, but it's such a business. It is a pyramid scheme in which, and again, this is all part of the teachings as well, because there was a phase where it was called the prosperity gospel. And a lot of the mega churches, the preachers at least, they profited so many times. If I were to give you this name, Creflo Dollar, Kenneth,
I heard the name. Yeah.
All these people here, Jamal Bryan, Pastor TD Jakes, all of these people here were on this sort of prosperity doctrine where it was like a business proposition where there was pimping out the gospel for money. So people come in and drove saying, like, listen, you need to, because especially in the US, because they have a massive culture of like tipping and stuff. And I think there's a lot of mega churches in Africa as well. From what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong or not, but I'm sure like Nigeria, Ghana, they have a lot of mega churches too. Like,
it's starting to be a thing now. Yes, definitely.
I heard in I think it's Nigerian TV, Joshua. But in regards to the mega churches, it has been one of the most destructive things I've ever seen in my life, because you have a situation here where you have all these people who are living in poverty because they're in bad neighborhoods. And again, because of their desperation, they're learning from their preaching pastor, you need to give to God because God's going to free you from your situation. God, you have to give, because there's a classic line in the Bible that says, give and it will come back to you, pressed down, shaken together, rolling over. So what the idea is, there's certain texts that they use, because the Bible, depending on how you use the Bible, you can really, really, really get a lot of money out of people, because you're completely getting people into you're scaring them into, if you don't give to the preacher, you're not giving to God. So they're scamming the people. And with these mega churches, these preachers are on private jets, Lamborghinis. They're in house £1 million mansions. These are these preachers of these parishioners who are in relative poverty in relation to where their situation are in whatever place of the world that they're in. But yet they're giving because they actually are taught, believe that this is the right thing to do. And if they don't, they're a bad Christian, they're a bad person, or the kind of other stuff. Even though, as I said before, it's all on faith. It's nothing to do with what the Bible says or anything like that at all, because at the end of the day, the only person who's getting rich, the only person who's actually prospering is the preacher. And like every single pyramid scheme, the preacher's going to say, or self-fulfilling prophecy, here's what the preacher will say: oh, look at that, God blessed me with a watch the other day. No, you didn't. The people blessed you with that watch. It was the people who paid for that car. It wasn't God. The preacher say, God blessed me with a jet. No, the people blessed you with that jet. It was their money that paid for the jet. But that's how they look at it. And then the people are gullible and thinking, oh, yes, Lord, if you can do it for the preacher, you can do it for me. No. You're doing that. So these mega churches are nothing but, they're fantastic business schemes. They're fantastic ones. Now, some people use it in terms of parishioners for networking. So there's some things where I would say for networking and, let's be honest, finding a girl, finding a woman, finding a guy, that's what they use it for, these mega churches. But overall, when I hear that word mega church and when I see what has happened and how just the downright just deception that's taken place, even from a text that I don't believe in, but they even twist and contort the text to rinse and repeat and scam the people. It is absolutely criminal. And when they get pressed on it, it's like they still believe in what they're saying. I don't know if they generally believe it. I think they're just too far gone. And it's just a mess from top to bottom.
Bruv, it's unbelievable. When I first got out, because we don't really have the mega churches here, but when I started to see them, I'm just like, this is actually crazy. This looks like, some of them look like concerts. Do you know what I mean? But in the concept of, like when, I suppose it's the same concept really, when they're like, I don't know, when they tell the crowd to do something or say something and they follow and everyone follows on. And it's almost like, even more so, and again, Spat Nation, people are bringing that up as well, it's a very good example. It's like, it's a bit surreal to watch sometimes, because it's like people are in just like this trance-like state. It's a bit mad. But even when it comes to things like pastors that, speaking at those mega churches, the influence they have, even when I go deeper with that with people I know, I try to bring up the concept of, okay, Because if you want to go there, do you guys believe in the concept of, you believe all of this, that means you believe in the concept of witchcraft and supernatural, other natural things, yeah, alternatural things, which probably means then, because I wouldn't say I believe in necessarily supernatural things, but I do in a way, i.e., the concept of spelling, as in spelling, as in the word, as in the words spelling a word, but also casting a spell, because words have a big effect, and that's also when you're speaking them. So, in a Cassandra way, some of these pastors are putting spells on these people. Is the Bible, the Quran, a spell book? How deep do you go with this? Because
I was gonna say that's a very, very, very interesting way of putting it. Because you are right. And this actually is in general life, how there's certain, and this is how sometimes the Bible, how it's used, and depending on the pastor and how skillful the pastor is, or even just speakers, because this is just in general for speakers. Because when you go through just in normal life, for example, I know in your streams you talking through the Windrush documentary, and one of the figures was Enoch Powell, and how his speech put the nation in a trance, and it revved up the climate of the nation, and all it was words. And how, again, when it comes to using the Bible now, again, same thing, just words. But you're right, it puts a spell, it puts like a feeling into the people, because you're right, words do have an impact. I mean, people always use the expression, I hate this, particularly when it comes to debating abuse. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The biggest lie I've heard in my life, I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, most people will remember the feeling of the words, or the spell, if you like, that you put on a person through your words, the emotion about it, as opposed to necessarily physical abuse. So 100% what you're saying, I 100% agree. It is a spell that gets put on people when people skillfully use it. Even me as a content creator, the words I use, how I say, how I articulate myself, I'm putting everything in the trance. I'm putting you in that spell. But you're right, that's what happens in church. You're putting a spell.
That's what happens in church. It's the same sort of thing. So how far do we go with this? And if we're going off general consensus, then that's a concept of witchcraft, which is then supposed to be bad. So then, where do we go with this? And they're not willing to open Pandora's box. Now, the problem, my biggest problem I've always had with the concept of religion, be it around me, so Christian, of whichever format, or Muslim, wasn't so much the following of the religion. Like I said, when I saw the nice parts of religion, I get the concept of religion. I get it. If it made complete sense into what you guys interpret it to be or put out, it would be a beautiful thing. And it can be. However, the fact that people do not want to ask questions, do not want to verify information, do not want to open up Pandora's box, always puts me off it. And to the point where not only do questions not get answered, you get this passionate, dismissive response. And you're right. To be honest, it seems to be more from black people, because again, I'm around as much Muslim people as I'm Christian people. Not, a lot of them actually aren't even black than Muslim people. I think I've said this before. They're like Arabic, Middle Eastern, or Asian. There's a few of them I've been around and stuff. Now, even when I question certain things on their religion, I got to be honest, I get more of an explanation. Even if it's a passionate response, I still get a response. When it comes to black people and us, and I don't even want to say our religions, I just want to say and religion, because really, what's our religion? Which is another question, which one's ours? Because everybody seems to have one, we don't seem to have one. We have ones we follow, but what's our one? Because I haven't seen it yet.
I agree. And to answer your point, you 100%, because I've spoken to Muslims, and you know what? They are more open about their religion and talking about science. I've heard so many Muslims where they would actually fusing a lot of intellectual conversations into their book to try and prove their book, even though there'll be things which, again, you just have to, again, disagree with, and certain things I don't agree with, but they will still try and use intellect, logic, in order to, as you would, open Pandora's box. However, when it comes to black people, when I ask the same questions about it, it gets to the point now where it's just like, again, it's just faith, and almost just shut up and believe, and they don't want to delve into science, because, again, as the Bible says, beware of so-called false sciences. It's like there's always something in the Bible, and this is another thing as well, which is I find funny, is Christians, when I ask them a question about it, that's what I
They've
say.
got a scripture. They've got a go-to.
Thank you. They would use the Bible, which I'm telling you, how can you prove it's right to prove that what they're saying is right? I'm like, you can't do that. This is like me using a Harry Potter book to prove that there's something called wizards and muggles. And someone saying there's no such thing. Yeah, but in Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets said this. Yeah, but in Harry Potter, listen, I'm telling you, the whole book's wrong. But that's what Christians do. It's the funniest thing I've ever heard I've seen in my life. They can only use one text. They only cite one source, but that's the source I'm disputing. Don't you understand? That's the source. I'm trying to understand why you believe in it. But again, it's because black people stereotypically now talk about their religion. It's not about religion. It's their faith. It's the faith. It's the faith part, because the faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the substance of things not seen. So they don't have to have any evidence about anything. They just believe it just because they believe it, because it says so in the text that they were taught from young. It is what it is. It's just that faith. That's the reason why they don't want to open Pandora's box, because they don't think they need to. Because as long as they have, as long as they have that faith, that's all that matters to them. Whereas white people, other people, they will at least try and say, can we prove this? Can we actually understand better? Can we actually open up this box? Because at the end of the day, these are interesting topics. Don't you want to know how the earth was created? Don't you want to know if these things are true? Don't you want to prove these kind of things? And it's like, and I've always said this about the difference between black people and white people. And comedians we used to laugh at white people like this, but let me explain what I mean. So black people will laugh at white people because white people would want to, tame a lion. So a white person will try and tame a lion, but the lion will, eat the guy's head off. We will laugh at him saying, yo, why are you going to those lions there? The next white person will come and he'll still try and tame a lion. He'll probably get killed. We're laughing at him like thinking, you're an idiot. Why are you doing that for? But then the other time, there's this one white guy who manages to not only tame the lion, but understand the lion, and more information comes out. Same thing when it comes to outer space. A black person looking at outer space says, don't worry about that. God's up there. We don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. I have faith. A white person say, is God up there? Well, let me see if I can join God in space and see what happens up there. So the white man will try and go to space. He'll probably fail a couple of times. He will get there. And you know what he will say? There is no God there. But guess what happens? He continues and continues and continues. See the difference? Black people will stop at the source. White people, they will continue and find out exactly what it is to be finding. That's the difference.
Even archaeology, they do archaeology in our own countries and find out more about our stuff than we do.
They know more about us as a people, as a group, like Africans, our history, than we do. They've noted down the ethnic groups. They know about these kind of things more than we do. They write this shit down. They aren't leaving things to hope and faith. They're not that kind of, that's not how they operate. Even though they say they are religious, that's not how they operate. That's just not in them.
I agree. I'll definitely say and sorry, Myth Twist, you are correct, because half my family is Muslim. So I won't say all black people like Muslims are like Christians. But when you think of a large chunk of black people, I think a lot of people do first think Christians. But anyway, yeah, I actually agree with you. And it does seem to be a culture and, dare I say, race thing too, exactly what you're saying. We definitely seem to be more weak-willed when it comes to wanting to learn more, especially when it comes to something like religion. It's like this is the all be all and end all. And like you said, those countries want to get in space, see if there's God. Okay, there's nothing there. Let's see if we can go further. Oh, yeah, the solar system's this big. Oh, let's see if we can go further.
They want to know the secrets of the world. They will. Exactly. It doesn't matter that they die, because guess what happens? The next generation will still try and find out things that they didn't find out. So do you know in that video that I showed, where the question was asked, what was before the Big Bang? And the right person said quite correctly, we don't know. But that must be his faith. That must be faith. That must be his faith. That must mean you have faith. You must have faith. You must have faith. And that's where he tries and stops the conversation. Whereas the white guy says, hold on a second. All I'm trying to say is we don't know yet. See that difference there? We don't know yet, but we are going to try, if we can, find out. And it was
correct, because Genesis, it just says God created that. We don't know. There's nothing before that. So even if we go off the book, Genesis starts like that. So what happened before that?
Do you know what?
We don't know.
Yeah, listen. Listen.
Bro,
I know what Christians will say to that. I know what Christians will say to that. They will use the Bible to say there was no beginning before God. God was always there. You know, there was God was in the beginning. God is the beginning, the middle, and the end.
And then how do you know? Because you said you don't know. Bro.
Listen, I'm telling you.
I'm gonna get you vexed in it.
No, it's more than that. But blood, this is the kind of subjects which I don't know what it is. I think I'm going a bit more hard on it just because I look at myself thinking, I know why I believed in it, and it is what it is. But it's just a case, man. It's just looking back at the evolution of yourself in regards to what you believe. And sometimes, I mean, I never even believed in Santa Claus when I was younger. You know, when like white kids come and say, "Oh, I remember the time when mom and daddy told me that Santa Claus wasn't real." I was like, I never remembered anything about Santa Claus. I was always told that Santa was an acronym for Satan. So there's certain things which I was always told. But no, seriously, in church, man, we was told that Santa is Satan and all that kind of stuff. We still celebrate Christmas, though. We still celebrate Christmas.
Even right, like that makes sense.
No, even though it had nothing to do with the Bible, we still celebrate it. So whatever. But yeah, there was none of that. And the thing is, none of those fairy tales we were ever allowed to get away with from a natural sense. But yet this Bible, you could argue, is the biggest fairy tale of them all, and yet we were told to believe it hook, line, and sinker. Make that make sense.
Without question, and without question at all. Without question. I'm going to need to go in a minute, bro, but I just want to say one last bit before I jump off.
Yeah, I'll let you rock it. I'll let you rock. Yeah, no worries.
Just in terms of even, you know, going with what whichever book says, the words in them, even if you take, let's say, the Bible, even when I questioned, okay, so which one do you believe? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, there's several versions. So which one's correct? Because it's been changed a few times. That's another thing. How come it's been changed a few times? Which one's correct? Which one do you follow? Why do you follow which one? Which one is incorrect? I've never had that explained. I've got people with different, because, you know, you got the King James versions, you got the first and second. I mean, like, which one is the correct one? What, the most recent one? Because I've seen a recent one in the last 20 years that's got like this silver platinum-y cover. It looks lovely, but what is that? What was that? The Millennium version? Like what? I've heard there's a newer version that's been the scriptures are easier to interpret, so that means they've been changed a bit. So what has things been taken out? There's books missing. There's meant to be, you know, certain books missing from the Bible that other versions have. So even with that concept, which one, you know, is correct? Which one is the Bible, or which is just free for all, and we just picking them up, you know?
No, you're right, because and this is a very interesting point you raised, because when it comes to the Catholic Church, they have extra books in the Bible. I don't know if you heard of the Apocrypha. That's not what non-Catholics read. So in most like black churches, it'll be usually the 66 books of the Bible. However, in the Catholic Church, they have the Apocrypha, which is an extra, I want to say 4 or 5 books of the Bible. We was always told, don't worry about that. And I'm like, so hold on a second. Time out. So apparently this Bible now is meant to be, you know, the word of God, but yet there are other books that we're not being taught. Why now? Because we don't believe them to be part of God's word. Why is that the case? Didn't really get a proper explanation to it. There are so many things which it doesn't even happen in other religions. So when we talk about religions, even when it comes to Christianity, it's so interesting. Because in Islam, there are a few sects, but there's nowhere near like it is when it comes to Christianity. Because in Islam, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, the Quran, there's only one version of the Quran. There may be like an English version, an Arabic version, but there's no there's a King James version. As
far as I'm concerned, the Quran is the Quran. That's it.
Yeah, there it is. No one can tell them. No one can change that Quran, because that's like sacrilegious. Whereas in the Bible, they change translations, which not only does it change the wording of it, because there's a thing. People think it's just about changing the style format, because you have like King James version, New Living.
That's a very good point.
But I've read different versions, and I'm telling you, the wording completely changes the context of the scripture, and that is a fundamental difference. So when people talk about different translations, it's more than just a different type of word here or there. It changes the complete complexion of what the Bible's saying, and it's like, so what are you to believe?
And therefore changes the context, and then therefore changes the understanding.
Yeah, I mean, what are you to believe when so many books out there, which apparently now was just taken out of the Bible, because the Bible was commissioned by so many councils, Council of Nicaea, all these councils that came together to say this is what's going to be included in the Bible. So I'm just like this. How can you trust what's being presented to you as, no pun intended, the gospel? How can you believe this as the gospel when it took people, man, not God, it wasn't a God who just put it all together. It was man who put it all together and said, this is going to be in, that's going to be out, this is going to be in, that's going to be out, this is going to be in, that's going to be out. And this is how.
And then how did they determine that? Then where did they get the authority to determine that? And then, yeah.
I mean, obviously at the time, there must have been the most authority in the land. I mean, whoever gave him that power or position, there must have been, high politicians and king's leadership or whatever it may be, the councils that you have in like Game of Thrones. I'm thinking of that kind of council, the Privy Council. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. But this is what people believe in. And do you know when you try and ask the question as to, can we break it down, please? Because if you're telling me this is what I'm supposed to believe in, because again, Christians like to convert, and that's another thing I want to talk about in regards to cultural traits. But if that's what I'm meant to believe in, then my days, I need to have these answers. And if you don't have these answers, then aren't you worried that you don't have these answers? But nope, faith is all they need.
Bruv, this is a highly interesting one.
And here, I'm probably going to have to do a number 2 in regards to, really honing up.
You got to do more
in regards to religion and the text, and just going through what is it that people believe in. But yeah, it's just one of those things that it needs to be talked about more often. But yeah,
I've got to sort of jet off though. Unfortunately,
I appreciate you.
Thank you for
on the stream, man. No problem.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Thanks for everyone in the chat. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Why It Matters. The channel's fantastic, bro. Fantastic live. I'm gonna catch the rest of it on the replay. But yeah, I can't wait for the next one, bro. Take it easy.
No worries. Later. Nice one.
Bye.
But yeah, it doesn't make a shred of sense. Now, Myth, you put this on the chat, and this is one of the things which I was sort of struggling with, but I think I know the reason why. Because you asked the question, why weren't we just born with the knowledge of the Bible rather than have to learn it through paper? Now, while I do believe in some of the context of what you're saying, here's what I'll say in regards to that. We as humans, there is nothing on this planet Earth that we instinctively know. It has to be taught. And here's what I mean. We are taught how to speak. We are taught how to walk. Or say we learn how to walk. We learn how to compute sums. We learn about the earth. We learn about the history, our history. There's nothing on planet Earth that we have ever gone through which is instinctual, except for shitting and being able to digest food. They're the only two things us as human beings, from when we come out of our mother's womb, have been able to do without any sort of teaching. Crying is one of them as well. But in terms of things such as, I suppose, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of this, there is not one piece of knowledge that we as humans have ever self-learned. There's always something that we learn. Now, there may be something instinctual that we know about, but there's always someone who translates it for us. For example, when it comes to, again, understanding jumping and moving and running, someone had to teach us about the mechanics of speed, time, and distance. However, these are all things that we had to be taught. It's not something that we instinctively know. We may instinctively know, we can do it because we see other people do it. But again, these are all things which we've had to learn through evolution, through time. It's not something which we have ever been born with. If you grow up and you don't speak a language because you're not exposed to it, you will be grunting. If you don't get exposed to mathematics, you will not know maths. Does it still exist? Yes, it does. Gravity existed way before we knew what it was. We just don't know what it was, but it existed. It wasn't until someone taught us about it did we know, oh, that's what it's called. Oh, that's what it is. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, that's kind of how I see it. We all have to be taught. So why aren't we designed to have learned anything is what I'm asking. Why isn't this knowledge like our instincts? If I understand what you, I see what you're saying. It's like, if we have to know all these things, why didn't we put it into people rather than make us learn, make it sense? Again, I think it's just a growth pattern, Myth. I don't think, I'm hoping you're assuming by the time we get older, we just instinctively click and we know about God and all that kind of other stuff. But again, in life, there's nothing else on life I've ever seen us instinctively know other than shitting and crying. Even walking, we have to learn. If you don't learn how to walk, you will never walk. If you don't learn how to speak English, you'll never speak English. If you don't learn how to, again, do mathematics on the computer, you'll never learn. Everything that we do right now is man-made, even to the gods. So even our gods are some sort of man-made construction, because it took a man, I want to mean mankind, so a man or a woman, to teach you these things. So I think all these things have always been taught. Hope that answers your question. But anyway, Meth, you're here, so yeah, what's up?
Yeah, no, I came to clarify what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, I already know the difference between, like, I know about the tabula rasa and being a blank state at birth. That's what I'm asking is, if people are saying God is a thing and God is omnipotent and God should have the power to put the knowledge in you at birth, the things you're describing, that's just because we weren't designed like that. What I'm saying is, we should have been designed like that. If it's so crucial that we need to know these things, we shouldn't have we shouldn't have to learn these things. We shouldn't have to learn what the Bible is. It shouldn't have to be written. It shouldn't have to be something that's taught. If it's so imperative for us to know it and it's such a big deal, then why wasn't that just put into us? Like, for example, we were given instincts. That's something we do have. Like, we do have instincts nobody teaches us to have. The very first humans that ever existed, they didn't know these things. Animals have instincts. No one teaches an animal what it just has instincts. So what I'm saying is the Bible or whatever, all that knowledge is that we should know about God, it should have been just there instinctually. We should have just been born, and then pretty much like straight away, we should just know that stuff. There shouldn't be any learning, because that's why I'm saying, like why I said earlier about the free will thing. It's like, how are you going to have free will and the ability to think and determine and make your own decisions? But then, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, for me, I'm not religious at all, so I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense, and I think that's why the world's becoming more and more secular, because it's just like the more you think about it, the less it makes sense and the less it adds up.
No, I 100% agree. And to answer your question, I get what you're saying now in regards to why is it not just instilled like an instinct. And to be fair, when you put it like that, I have sort of asked Christians this, because I always get this myself, thinking we should instinctively know that there is a God, and not only a God, which one to actually follow, because at the end of the day, there's so many religions out there. And whenever I ask this question, which religion to follow, there's always like, oh, it's always my religion. I mean, that's another situation. But a lot of people think that we are born with that instinct. It's just that we, because we are so, I suppose, lost because of how the world is, which is what we're born into, we then go into our own way, and we need guiding onto the right path, because depending on what faith you'd speak to, or which religious group you speak to, they believe that we were all under one accord, under this God instinctively. However, because of and the world how it is now, we've all now fallen from the truth. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Our instinct is suppressed now, if you like. So it's a case of now, because we have all these, our gods are our money, our gods are our cars, our gods are our TVs, our gods are this. So it's suppressing the God instinct that we have because of these things that dumb us down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just very, very
yeah,
convenient.
I know. It's.
I do think
at all, because if you have a tiger, a pet tiger, when he grows up, his instincts are still the same, regardless if he's in the wild or really in the cage. I've seen cage animals, and their instincts are maybe not as sharp, but I'm telling you, they're still sharp. They still have that instinct to, like, okay, I'm going to creep up on you if you turn your back on them. If you turn your back on a tiger, even in cage, that instinct I'm going to click in. So I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess they're saying it's almost like we've been domesticated or something, like.
Pretty much.
I don't know. It's like I can get it, logically, I can see the argument there, but it's like so convenient, it's like so convenient, and that's the thing with religion. It's a lot of conveniences. Even though there are things in these texts and stuff that is ancient knowledge that does point out things that we go through in the modern day, and I do think, how the heck did they know that? There are things like that, and I do think there's, like, I'm one of those people where I have the belief that in ancient civilizations and long ago, I think a lot of those people were quite intelligent and probably knew a lot of things that, like, I do think there's probably certain lost knowledge And I think that there's probably people in the world who know it, and majority of us don't know it. You know, like for example, and this is gonna sound odd, but like I'd always say, think about Wi-Fi, right? So like we're using Wi-Fi right now to communicate and use the internet, and it's a part of our everyday lives. Now, when I was growing up, and well, I'm still growing up, but when I was born, I was mostly born into a world that by the time I was old enough to interpret the environment, the internet was kind of like, it was a thing. It was already around in existence. So I've never really known a non-internet world, right? Now, you're a bit older than me. I'm guessing, I'm sure you remember a time when there wasn't really internet just around like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, but the thing is Wi-Fi still existed. Do you get what I mean? Like Wi-Fi is not man-made. Like Wi-Fi, if you think about it in a weird way, like Wi-Fi has been around throughout the entire existence of this planet, but we just didn't know or have the tools to utilize it. Like when I think about things like that, I start thinking, well, what other things are there that we just haven't developed the tools to pick up on and use? And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of the time, the things that I think people consider to be like religious or spiritual things, I think a lot of times it's just parts of the world that we just haven't been able to like we haven't been able to put like a scientific basis behind. Sometimes when I've heard people say like, oh, I saw a ghost or I saw an angel, I'm like, imagine like if it turned out something like that did exist, I bet it wouldn't be what we think it is. Like I bet it'd be some, you know, like, I don't know. I just think of things like that. It's like, and Wi-Fi is just one of those things because it's such a common thing we use today. But at some point in human, like for most of human history, we never even knew it existed. And look at how it's changed the world. You know what I mean? It's like, that's crazy that something like that was just basically just like floating alongside our heads all this time. We didn't even know about it. And in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of the idea of when people say like there's ghosts or spirits or something like that, like things you can't see, because technically you can't see it. I can't see Wi-Fi. I've never seen Wi-Fi in my life. If you was to say to me, how do you know Wi-Fi exists? The only proof I have is that we're using it. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you can't see it. And I guess sometimes that does make me sometimes understand where people are coming from with the idea of, oh, you don't have to see things for them to be real, you know? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I 100% agree with you. And to be fair, it does fit in because a lot of the, and that is what I believe when it comes to religion, a lot of the times it's just how they can best interpret something that they didn't know at that time. And this is where some of the, like I said, the ghost part and Wi-Fi, and how do you describe that to somebody, particularly if it was way back then and say 2,000 years later something happens and you're trying to explain Wi-Fi? Is that some sort of mystical thing? But but you're right. It's a case of at that time that's how they could establish it or they could explain it, even though this is something that's always been here. It's just we don't have the tools, the technique to be able to create it. It's like everything that's man-made now, from our tables, our desks, our chairs, microwaves. Just because microwaves only existed in the last sort of few years, it's always been there. It's just that we didn't know how to do it. We didn't know how to put it together, put it all together, and use it to what we need to do until now. So yeah, I think it's just a case of where science is, it will say, okay, then cool. We're going to prove it, and we're going to try and get to that point where we can actually explain it, how it came about. We may not know how to yet, or something we don't know yet, but we're going to keep on moving. The pendulum. Whereas religion, what they will look to do is, if they don't understand something, this is where the God aspect comes into it. So because they probably didn't know why, let's just say, why the sun set and the sun went up at, from east to west, they'll be like, that's God. How was the earth created? God created the earth, because that's how they can rationalize it. So this is the thing where, because they couldn't see it, and because they couldn't know it, like the wind. The wind is a classic example. There used to be wind gods, depending if you were in, for example, wind god, the rain god, the sun god. All these things were there because they couldn't explain what they saw, even though sometimes they could visibly see it. Some things they could feel. So it's like, oh, what's that? Is that a ghost? No, it's just we understand it's the airways. We understand it's the wind. So this is the difference between what religion will do, and then science will say, all right, cool. That's what you think it is. What really is it, and can we prove it?
Yeah, that's the thing, like, because I've thought about this like a lot of different times, and like, I mean, because for example, I've gone through different phases where I'm like, there is a God, then I'm like, there isn't a God, and whatever. I think you were saying earlier, at least I believe you said this, that you said you believe in like a higher power or something.
Yeah, I do believe in something. I mean, I won't. The reason why I don't say God is because what happens is people then try and say, "So, what religious sect do you belong to?" I'm like, don't do that. But I do believe in. I think it's. I want to believe there is something out there because, I want to say after because some people go through some hell on earth, and I want to believe there's something out there. But yeah, I do believe there's a higher power. I do believe in. I do also believe in a little bit of reincarnation as well, which I'll probably talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I do believe in.
That's interesting. I would want to talk about that because that was kind of the direction I was going to go into. So that's interesting because I was thinking, I was like, I might bring that up. You might be like, oh, I don't believe in that, but because when I was little, and I remember when in primary school when we had assembly and they spoke about like they put up like a picture of all these different religions, Hinduism and Christianity and blah blah, and I didn't know any of them at the time besides Christianity. So I saw the Taoism symbol and I was like, what's that? It just stood out to me, so I didn't know what that was. And they were talking about reincarnation and all of that kind of stuff. And I always thought it was like a really interesting concept, like because it kind of made you feel like, oh, well, I get to live again. Like I get another chance. Like as a kid, that just sounded appealing. Like, oh, I get to have another chance kind of thing. It's not the end, right? But then when I thought about it, something that always bothered me, and it's a funny thought, but I always used to think, oh, but what if the earth gets blown up? Like, can you reincarnate? Like, how does that work? Like, I didn't see how it worked in the long term, right? So, but something I actually, one of my younger brothers said to me once, which was very clever, but he once said to me, he was like, I brought up the reincarnation thing, and he said, oh, like, why does everyone always think of reincarnation, like, in the future, And I said, you know what? That's a very good point. Like, I know that now that it is a concept, but I, at the time, didn't know or think about people being reincarnated in the past, for example. And when you look at that idea, it makes sense because the idea is that time's not entirely this linear thing. It's like circular, cyclic. So when you think of it like that, it does make sense that if reincarnation is a thing that you would be able to come back at a different period in time, even in the past, from our perspective, because it made sense when I understood it like that. But yeah, I don't know what you want to say about it, but yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No, it's a very interesting thing you raise, and in regards to how I sort of see it, I kind of look at it from even a more scientific viewpoint in this perspective, because I'm pretty sure all of us, when we're younger, we've gone through this in life, especially when you're young. Oh, you look like so and so. You look like so and so, and it's usually a family member you've probably never met before. It may be either an auntie, an uncle. It may be some uncle way over there. It may be a dead relative, but because of our DNA gets passed on, you're a product of your mother and your father, they're a product of their mother and father, they're a product of their mother and father. Therefore, all of their DNA is passed on down to you. So there has to be some sort of reincarnation or imprint of those said people that makes you look like the way you do, because it's all part of the same linear tree. So with that being said, that's just based on a physical look. You have your mother's nose, your father's eyes. They're just those sort of physical aspects. But what about from a personality aspect? What about from another aspect? Because there are things where, again, this is what I observed when I was younger, that also say, you remind me in terms of your ways as so-and-so. Now, keep in mind, you've never met this person. You've never learned from this person. You're young. You're just going about your life. But yet you remind them of somebody, not just by their look, but what they do. So this is why I say I believe even from a scientific viewpoint, where our DNA gets transfused, that's part of where the reincarnation starts. I'm not fully fleshed out how I believe it that way, but that's kind of how I sort of see reincarnation, as a fact of when you go down generations, you see almost a mimic of yourself, maybe so many generations beforehand, and also maybe you have been just reincarnated in a future, or as you said, maybe a past self, because time is not linear, but it's circular.
Yeah, it's funny because that's exactly, even though I didn't say it, that is exactly how I think. And the other thing, because the reason why I was saying all of that about, if the earth blows up and then, it's not linear and blah, blah, blah. The reason why I said that is because, the way how I view things now, right? My belief right now, or if I believe in any type of gods or type of power at the moment, the only way I can describe it is nature. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't believe in something outside of that. So, and the reason I say this is because, to do with exactly what you just said, you actually see reincarnation all the time. Like, we literally see it happen. Like, the one thing with me is that if I can't see an observable reality, I start to doubt. Like, if I can't see it anywhere and no one else can point it out to me, and it's like globally there's just no consistent evidence, I start doubting it's the truth. Now, the thing about reincarnation, this kind of stuff, is when I was a kid, I just thought it was cool. But as I've gotten older, the more and more I look at things around me, the more sense it makes. And because it's like, well, hold on a minute. If a plant dies, right, the plant will have a seed that you can use to plant into the soil so that it grows another plant. And it will be the exact same type of thing. Just like what you're saying about reproduction. Even when you ask people what's the meaning of life, like scientists and stuff, a lot of people say it's reproduction. Now, isn't that an interesting thing that a lot of people can agree on that, but then the reincarnation thing isn't really spoken about? And also, when we die, a lot of cultures' belief is to bury you into the ground. Now, if you think about it, it's going to sound weird, but I started really thinking about this, and I was like, well, what happens when you go in the ground?
Soil and that kind of stuff. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right. You go in the ground, but they say that you have like cells and stuff like that, right? Now, if you go into the ground and you're being devoured by, creatures and maggots or whatever, are they not taking that on? And like how we have a what's it called? Ecosystem, but there's another word for it, like chain, like a food chain, but basically an ecosystem is what I'm getting at. Like, there's the idea that everything's circular. If you just look at every single thing in nature, like everything, it's circular. Everything, it literally is. Like, that's not even really opinion. Like, I mean, the Earth is even rotates, and the sun, like, it's all. And it's funny because no matter what you look at, science or any religion, it's in all of those things. And when I started looking at it, like, I was like, maybe that's, like, I don't know about art, but maybe that's, for me, that's the closest thing to the truth I can see. And this is why I brought up the instinct thing, because instincts are not a matter of opinion. They're fact. If I go outside, I can just see that animals behave a certain way. It doesn't matter what I believe, that's what they do. If there's a thunderstorm, the thunderstorm does what thunderstorms do. I don't get to decide or choose that. Like, and nature is the one thing I can trust because it's independent of man. Like, all these other things, like, oh, well, this is my religion, blah, blah. That's all man-made and influenced. Even if at one point, let's say there was a God, the problem is that humans can lie. So even if that was true, they can manipulate and change it, whereas nature, if I look at that just does what it does. You know what I mean? Like, if I was around 1,000 years ago, a dog now and a dog 1,000 years ago probably isn't that different. Like, you know what I mean? It's just doing what a dog does.
Yeah.
And I guess I look more to that for the truth than anything. So, like, for example, when people say killing is bad or wrong, it's like, I don't think people should go around killing each other, sure. But I look at nature and I think, well, does killing occur in nature? Yes, it does. So then I start thinking, well, for some reason, we have this feeling inside us where we might feel like being aggressive towards somebody. Why would we be designed with that feeling if it's not something to, like, I just start looking at what we actually biologically have rather than just shit people make up. Like, I just look at what's actually there. And I think that's it. Like, I don't think the answers are out there in space. I think it's here and it's been here the whole time. But we're just making up these grandiose narratives about it, rather than just actually looking at what's here. I don't know.
No, I completely get what you're saying. And I suppose to a point, I definitely do agree with it. I do think there is, and this is where I think when it comes to some of the looking at comparing us to the other animals to us, where we're different because we have that consciousness. And this is where sometimes the whole, for me, spirituality part of it, and there's a higher power where I do believe in certain things. There's certain things I'm like, okay, I know that, like I said, the answer is probably out here. We're just not found out what it is yet. This is the thing, isn't it? This is where most religious people probably stop there and don't worry about it. But obviously, we want to know what it is. But I always think there's just something else there with us, what has that consciousness, which allows us to know that we know what we're alive. We can, you know what I mean? We know ourselves. We can see a conscious being, which just separates us from the rest of the animals. And that's probably the one difference I would say in regards to your analogy about a lot of things like aggressiveness. Not the fact that we do have aggressiveness, we do act like, you know, animals, but we have that consciousness to be able to say, well, that we know that's wrong. We know that's not how it's supposed to be. We understand things on a different level than any other creature on planet Earth. And that's sometimes what leads me to still hold on to something of, what is that? Where's that come from? Who's given that to us? Is that just innate from nature? And if that's the case, why is it just us? Why is it not an animal? You see what I mean?
I ask myself the same thing. Yeah. The thing I always think though sometimes is maybe we just think there's more out there and there isn't. Like and it doesn't sound as exciting or adventurous. But it's like, I mean, I start thinking about it. Like, for example, like I'm quite an artistic person, right? And I might make something that's quite creative or whatever. But there was one point where I just sat back and I looked here and I was like, this is an elaborate mating call, man. Like, like when I think about it, that's what all this is. Like, you know, I just watch TV and I look at it and I'm like, this is all just, that's what, like, I don't know, like when you get down to it, it's like it is all just driven by biology, which is why what you were saying earlier about determinism was interesting to me, because I really, really, really think about that a lot, and how fate plays into things and stuff like that. And in a lot of Eastern philosophy as well, it's a big part of their way of thinking as well as cycles, like the idea of cycles and fate, and you can't get away from fate and everything's determined. And they have that in quite a lot of their stuff. So it's quite interesting to me because I naturally found myself drawn to that. I didn't even know that was associated with Buddhism or anything. I didn't know that, but I've since discovered that it is. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Like, I don't know, it's just funny because, you know, with Buddhism, so they don't have like a god they worship like that, right? So they don't have some god they say that's who created everything and whatever. So I think it's just kind of interesting, like it's more of a spiritual thing. And that's why nowadays you got a lot of people saying, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. And it's like, weirdly enough, a lot of people are moving more to that direction. I see people who want to have little, you know, Buddhas up in their house and all kinds of things. And it's just kind of interesting how that shift is happening because...
Oh yeah, 100%. And particularly in these sort of westernized nations where sometimes, again, some of the religious texts, you seriously, I don't believe if you have a lot of, I say, a bit of intelligence, I don't believe you can really say this can be true. So a lot of times what we now move into is more of a philosophical type of viewpoint as to how we should live our life. We still try and keep a hold of some of the things which other religious aspects have in regards to just moral codes, but a lot of it is based on philosophies and spirituality. And I suppose just it's almost like hippie culture in a way, where it's just about being kind and being good to people. And obviously with this woke BS that's going on right now, it takes some awful turns, but just about being tolerant and stuff. So yeah, I totally agree. A lot of, what's the word? More advanced nations will take on this type of trait as opposed to the less advanced, the more poorer nations who seem to be very more ring-fenced into that rigorous structure of this is it. This is how the earth was created. This is how we are to behave. And depending on where you're at, it's really rigid. It's crazy. So yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot more people are definitely going to go into this type of thinking.
But that's the thing, because I think there is that, but I also think there's a lot more people who are just being straight up, like they don't believe in nothing spiritual. They don't believe in any of that. It's just completely secular. And I was like that for a period until, like I said, I started looking at certain things and I almost felt like a religious person because I started thinking like, look at this, look at that. This is a sign of this. And da, 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 da. And that's how it felt, like I was having a spiritual awakening or whatever. Like, and I'm not one of those people who's, you know, all thinking about, oh, I think you can, I don't know, like there's people who go a bit wild with it, but I'm not saying because they're going wild, they're wrong. Because my point is that, like, this is why I brought up the Wi-Fi thing. That is wild. It's like even over 50 years ago, that's wild. You know, here we are using it daily. It like it's nothing. You don't even think about it. It's just there in your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't, even though I'm Gen Z and I've been born with this, I cannot wrap my head around the world we live in sometimes. I think it's insane. And I was born into it. Like, I still think it's crazy because I just think I'm so lucky. I'm so glad I was born in this time. That's why sometimes I don't like, as much as the world gets on my nerves and I can cuss about it for ages, trust me, but I do at the same time really appreciate being alive in this time, man, because being able, like right now, us being on this panel, talking, having people in the chat, whoever's watching, like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that you can be around the world and interact and share ideas, I can't get over that sometimes. Like, it's just mad to me. And that's all possible from technology. And this is like another deeper philosophical thought I've had a lot of times as well, to do with my whole thing about what I say about nature. And this is something I've never really heard people talk about, right? But technology, right? A lot of times technology is seen as like the antithesis of nature, which is interesting because technology comes from nature. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't, everything we've made with technology came from the earth. Now, what I've always thought is interesting when I hear religious people talk about God or whatever is, if the world was made this way and it has all these materials and the materials can be molded in a way to make these technologies, then doesn't that mean these technologies, like, I don't want to say we were supposed to make them, but it's like, how, like, do you know what I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but it's like, we can make these things, and I just sometimes wonder, like, why is that possible? Like, to do what you said about us having consciousness, I start thinking, well, same thing with the technology. Why can we make these things? Like, why can we have an atomic bomb? Why can we have machine guns? Why can we have a light bulb or whatever? Like, why can we even, because it shouldn't be, there's laws of physics, there's certain things we simply cannot do, at least not now. Like, there's just things that we can't do. Like, a human being as of right now cannot fly. It's not happened.
Well,
right now
we've created planes to be able to fly for us.
Right, but I mean us, like, as in, yeah. But no, it's like, but if we could fly, it's gonna come from science. It ain't gonna come from us praying. It ain't gonna come from none of that. But what's funny is, if science does achieve that, it will achieve it because Earth provided the materials for it to do it. Do you get what I mean? So what I start thinking is, like, what's that supposed to mean? Like, what's the purpose of that? And I have never heard that be discussed before, because oftentimes the technology is seen as the antithesis to nature. So it's like, or the antithesis to God or spirituality. So it's like, no one notices that literal inherent connection. You don't get technology without the earth.
No, I get what you're saying. And to be fair, I've heard very few people talk about it in the way you've just described it, which is very interesting. And a lot of it is down to, you're right, because all of us are part of the earth. I mean, this is where evolution comes from. Because if you believe in, obviously, Darwinism, how we are formed from the primordial soup, we as a human being are part of the earth. Our body's made up of 70% water, with carbon, where we have all these things, the product table. We eat everything from the ground because we are from the ground. Therefore, us as a human being from the ground, everything that we have created today, its component parts have to come from the earth that we're born out of. So you're right. You could argue then all this technology, all this accessories, furniture, TVs, laptops, mics that I'm on right now, every single thing that we are using, that we have existing, what we call technology, is just an extension of the earth. Yeah. So would you call nature God? I mean, that's what a lot of people have said.
That's how I view it now. When I realized that, that's how I started viewing it. It's like, they say that everything came from God, and I'm like, but like, it's funny in like ancient Greek culture, they saw the earth as a deity, right? They had the concept of Gaia, so it's like, I don't know. I just find it interesting that there has been, like, even when they say Mother Earth or whatever, like, there are ideas that allude to the idea that Earth itself is the God. And I don't know if I'd think of it like that, but because I'm still trying to understand it. But right now, I'm heavily leaning towards the idea that nature itself is our God. Like, I don't think there's some some man. I don't think there's some woman. I don't think there's something in between. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's a simulation. I don't believe none of that. I just think that nature designed us the way it did. And again, you see this, like when we start fucking with nature, you start seeing that things happen, and it's usually not good. And I just find that interesting. It's like it's got a self-defense mechanism. And you know, even with Corona, people were saying, "Oh, this is this is punishment for hurting the earth." That's talking like as if Earth's a god, you know, that's gonna punish you, like smite you for. That's how people were describing it. You know what I mean? And those weren't people who think of the earth as their god. They were just saying it like just casually. But I just think it's an interesting idea, because there's also those things like Mother Nature has the last laugh and all those kinds of things. And I'm not sure if there's like a name for this, because I've not looked into it, like what I'm leaning towards. I know you don't have to label things, but I like to label things because it helps me to research it. But it's like I don't understand. I don't know. It's just not something I've heard as commonly. Like anytime I have heard this, it's tied to a deity. Like, oh yes, God did all that, you know, or something. Whereas I'm just kind of saying, I think it is literally just the earth. Like, that's it.
No, I completely hear you. And I think what tends to happen with people now is in order to rationalize things, there almost has to be like a certain start, an endpoint. And to answer your question, I think I suppose people see God, the idea of God, as like a man or some being looking down on us who controls our every single move, as opposed to, is the word God or the concept God different than how we actually believe it to be? Is it just, again, the earth is our higher power? That's the one where we come from. That's what forms us. That's where we get our nutrients from. That's what we need to make sure that we are in alignment with, and make sure that we don't disrespect. Because I suppose, again, I don't know how much you heard of the stream, but I was talking about African spirituality, which is, I think, one of the religions that we did before we even took on Christianity and took on Islam due to historical situations. That part of it was we have to be like one with the earth. And again, to answer your question, that's because they probably saw the earth as something to be reserved and preserved, and I won't say like glorified as a deity in a sense that we do now with religion, but it's definitely that God concept that we have, that, you know, this is the earth that birthed us. Therefore, that's Mother Nature. That is Mother Earth. There has to be some sort of what's the word? Reverence towards the earth, if you see what I mean. And therefore, there has to, you know, abide by its rules. But a lot of religious people be saying to me right now is, well, who created the earth? And it goes from that it goes to here. So who created the earth? Then who created him? And all this kind of other stuff. And that's how we get into this wormhole of religious stuff.
Which is a fair question, because again, that's, you know, I would stop there, but you know, then I don't know, it goes into odd territories, because then, you know, it's like, what's the moon, what's the sun, and if there's other planets, what are they? If there's other solar systems, what are they? Is there other life out there? And blah blah blah. But to me, it doesn't have to be Earth. It could just be the universe, whatever. Because even then, with spiritual people, they'll often say that, they'll say the universe, you know, the universe will give, the universe. That's like saying God. So, you know, it's just kind of interesting. And like I said, all of these things is in everything. Like this idea of preserving the earth is in everything. It's in religions and it's in science as well. Like even with when they talk about, like Vincent said in the chat, when they talk about global warming, I mean, every other day you got scientists, you know, people trying to tell you that we're destroying the earth or we're hurting the planet, and that's not good. You got Elon Musk out here trying to find a way to get the fuck out, because he's like, look, we're gonna ruin this planet, so, you know, we got to find a way to move on. Now, what's interesting to me is that what is it that has caused us to damage the planet like that? I mean, that's, again, it depends on what you believe. Some people say global warming is inevitable. Some say it's us doing it. I don't know. They said that when we was in lockdown, that ozone layer healed, blah, blah. I don't know. But what I do know is that we are literally doing things like deforestation. Like, that's not imagination, that's a fact. We are cutting down lots of trees and using those types of things. And I don't know how bad that is, but it's never been on this scale. And the Earth's been around this long because people weren't doing things like that. All of a sudden, we're creating these types of societies and civilizations that never existed. And again, this is where the religious texts are interesting. Or even philosophical texts, like where you had Plato talking about Atlantis and stuff, these hyper advanced civilizations that collapsed because they became too arrogant and advanced and thought they could basically do whatever they, whatever they wanted. Or I'm not very, very well versed in Christianity stuff, but I believe there's like the whole concept of like the Tower of Babel, which I believe is like the idea of this tower that's kind of, supposed to be reaching the heavens. And it's just like, again, Greek mythology, flying too close to the sun. Like there's a lot of these lessons about pride and like being trying to do, go too far. And when I look at today, the real world with my own two eyes, again, I'm not religious, so I'm not coming with no bias of, I don't even have but like, even like with what you said, where you said you'd want to believe there's something out there, I don't even have that. I just want to know what's actually going on. I don't even care if it turns out there ain't nothing after life, it's just pitch black, you're done. Like, cool. I just want to know though. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm just like, so I have no biases. Like, I don't care if it sounds cool or if it's dry. I don't care like what it is. I just want to know. So when I'm looking at it as clearly as I can, as humanly possible, I just see that it just makes too much sense, this nature to kind of take. Like, it fits everything. It fits everything, like everything. And but I've seen people say that about other religions, but as you and KB were quite rightly pointing out, no, it doesn't. There's tons of contradictions there, tons of contradictions, and a lot of things, and that's because it's man-made. That's the reason why. Isn't it funny? Like, take the human body. That's natural, right? There's no contradictions in the human body. It's perfectly designed, like there's no contradictions really. Like, it's not, I mean, there are sometimes, but that's what we call deformities, and that ain't supposed to happen. But like in a perfectly normal, natural human body, there's no contradictions. The heart's not somewhere where you could accidentally kick it, or, you don't cough your lungs out, or like nothing like that happens. You know what I mean? But look at a computer. You could have someone make a computer and maybe some wires not attached properly, and that's because it's man-made and a man's fallible. So when we construct something, we might not do it perfectly. But when nature builds things, there's no mistakes. Now, people say that's God, but again, like they think it's this human being. And even with psychology as well, like, that's the whole thing of us as humans. Our interpretation, we tend to project ourselves onto things. Like, that's why when people see clouds, they see images of things. We know the clouds aren't making a fucking picture of a dog, but we see a dog because as humans we relate it back to our life, or even with dogs, we give them names and act like they've got emotions like us as humans, and they care and think how we do when they don't. It's like, it's just
yeah, you're right. You're 100% correct. This is what we do. We try and put these labels and things, I don't say labels, but then we try and put these human identifiers or identifiers in these things that we just don't know, because we're trying to understand it. So we put a god onto, again, it's a god of the sun, it's a god of the moon, it's a god of wind god, it's the thunder god, it's this god. We always try and put something in it, and it always has it's not just a wind god, it's always some sort of story behind it which is more humanized. The wind comes out, or it rains when you've done something wrong, or it's angry or something. It's always some sort of humanistic type of way to try and understand things that we just nature.
Right, but then the irony is that those same faiths will tell you that God or gods, if it's polytheist, are above your comprehension. But it's like, no, they're not, because you're literally comprehending and telling me what they're doing and why. Like, that doesn't work. Like, you're saying it's above my understanding, but you're breaking down for me why this and that is happening. Like, you're saying God is punishing us because of this and because of that, and it's like, well, why? Well, because of this and because of that. And then it's like only after a certain point that they say it's above our understanding, or like I think it was like, as KB said earlier, like, it's not for us to know, or whatever. I just find it very, it's very odd. Like, you don't have these issues again when you look at the nature thing. And I can see, like, in the chat with Fiona and Vincent talking about technology and if it's good or not. See, like, obviously people from who were born before technology was as intrusive as it is now, right? They obviously remember when it wasn't like this. I kind of remember it a little bit, because I remember certain things. Like, one thing that you brought up the last time when you was doing a stream, was to do with you. I think he was mentioning how your attention span is like definitely not what it used to be, or like because of how things are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because that's just to do with the the instant gratification, like how everything's on demand now, and it's affected every single aspect of life. Like when I was younger, even down to a video game or something, right? Like if I had my PlayStation 2 and I wanted to put a game in, I had to get up, get the case, physically put it in. If I wanted to buy a new game, I better go down to game, go buy it, and that's a whole process. Right now, I can go put my PlayStation on right now, just sit down, or with my controller, and just with my controller alone, I can do all of that. I can buy a game, change a game, if I get bored of a game, I just, press one button, come out, go to the app, the next app, click it, and I'm in a new game. Instant. Like, it's just so quick. And I've noticed that when I was younger, I used to finish every game I bought because to get another one took time. Even just the process of switching games around, I wouldn't feel like doing because it's like, I have to get up and take it out. You know what I mean? Like, so, but once that stuff becomes like instant, look at Netflix. Like, think about like when we went to watch a movie. I remember blockbusters. People my age don't remember VHS. No, I grew up with VHS.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up with floppy disks as well. I had a TV that had the VHS player in it for years. Like, I don't know why people think my generation didn't have that, but we did. At least at my age, I think people a bit younger than me kind of missed it. But I think I've grown up in a very decent place where I remember just before this stuff was, social media was too heavy. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, Instagram and all that only came out when I was in like year 10 or year 11. So most of the social media stuff, I didn't get to it. It wasn't around till my teens anyway. But it's like, I remember a lot of these things, like, CDs to me were a new thing. Like, I'd watch a VHS and CDs were being advertised on the VHS like it was a big deal, so it was still fresh, a lot of this stuff. And I do remember a time before this instant gratification. And that's why I can see how much it's changed things. Like, for me, one of my biggest things I enjoy is books. Most people in my generation do not like reading books at all. They like reading, they just don't like reading books because they'll read the fucking Twitter feed all day. They'll read that shit. That's why in studies they say that we read more than ever. But there's a misconception that we read less. We don't. We read more than we've ever read. It's just that we're not reading books per se, which is okay. Even though I love books, I don't think we have to read books. And even with books, a lot of people read books, just not physical ones. They read ebooks and stuff. So, but I say that to... Yeah, go on.
In regards to technology, because one of the things which is interesting is obviously it's different now, but every single generation has always faced a new technological sort of invention or gadget, which has caused these kind of conversations that have taken place about how we as human beings have interacted with it. What does this mean in regards to so many things? Attention span, God. It could be dating back from when the TV was invented. Kids are being raised from the TV. This was back in the 60s. It could be from when books were invented. There's always some sort of stimuli that we've always tried to implement into every single generation of life, as you can imagine, from cars to planes to all these kind of things. Even the early editions, there's always things which every generation has sort of faced. I know now it's like on steroids, don't get me wrong, everything right now, but there's always some sort of technological invention or the next level, the next step that always just adds some more stimuli to it, which just compound interest. It's very crazy. So when we talk about technology, because even some religious people, some of the technologies, people, it depends on how religious you are. It's just like a big no-no. It's like the devil. I remember being in church and being told Pokemon cards were of the devil. So because of that, I had to get rid of all my Pokemon cards. And it's not like I could afford to get them anyway, but I got just like a few Pokemon cards. I had to get rid of them because the religions taught me that some of these technologies that are being invented is pretty much the devil. These TV shows, these things, you know what I mean? It's just like it's just a mad one in regards to how technology evolves and how us as a people, sometimes religious people, don't evolve with it, and it becomes again not a god but a devil. So this time rationalize a god. This time they rationalize it as a devil.
Well, that's the thing, though, because in my opinion, they're not doing anything wrong if that's truly what they believe. Because the thing is my issue with religion is how malleable it is. I don't like the fact that it changes. I think that if you're telling me that this text is fixed and it's supposed to be a certain lesson, it's supposed to work a certain way, you shouldn't be changing it. It should stay stagnant. That's the point. It shouldn't be changing. Like, and that's to do with what you and KP were saying earlier about how many different versions there are and how it changes. And, you know, it's like, the fact that there's not some cohesive understanding here is the reason why it can't be taken serious, and the reason why a lot of people aren't going to follow it anymore, because you're not strict and strong in what you believe. So as much as it may be an inconvenience, it's only an inconvenience because they're trying to maintain religion in a wider society that isn't. If it was that all the scientists were strong Christians and they only conducted their stuff through like a very religious way, or they just didn't do it, period, we wouldn't have that disconnect. You wouldn't grow up worrying about Pokemon cards because no one would have created Pokemon in the first place. Like, you wouldn't have that issue. But because we live in these societies where it's all different mixtures of different things, and then there's people saying religion is this, and then the religious people aren't consistent, it's very confusing. And so as a child, you're just going to think, well, why should I be restricted when my friend, who maybe his parents aren't as strict, or, you know, he's not religious or whatever, he doesn't have that. Like, I wasn't raised particularly religious, so I didn't have those types of restrictions, but I knew people who did, and I never wanted to be them. You know what I mean? But that's off-putting. Like, I mean, again, I just say this just for the sake of argument. Like, let's just, because we don't really know. What if they're right? Let's say, just for argument's sake, they're right, and there is the God, and everything they're saying, for whatever reason, it is the truth, and the Pokemon is the devil, and blah, 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 right? Well, see, the problem is because of how everything is, you aren't doing a very good job of convincing people outside of that to believe that, you know? So now most people, like, aren't going to believe you, and even your own children, a lot of them are going to be pushed away from it because you're raising them in an environment where it doesn't add up. Like, it doesn't fit what they're seeing. They're seeing their kids go to school, and regardless of whether they're religious or not, things is working out. So it's like, why they're just not, I don't know, like, it just creates a disconnect. And but the thing is I don't think they're necessarily wrong for wanting to keep their faith strict and stagnant. I think the problem is that they're trying to do it in an environment that isn't, you know, like, the wider society is not stagnant. So it just looks stupid. Like, it just looks dumb.
I 100% agree with you. And there's a comment on here which was going to actually remind me of what you talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, because you're right. A lot of religion, let's be honest, if we really, really want to be truthful about a lot of these religious texts, because they were conceived so long ago, that you will be living in you'll be an analog type of person in a digital world. That's how ridiculous it would be, because you'll be doing things which you're thinking that's not even old school, that's prehistoric. But you're right, it's difficult to try and keep those kind of viewpoints and those kind of beliefs in this environment which is constantly evolving. Because Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they don't believe in blood transfusions. Now, that's a technology that's recent, because it's to do with the blood, and they have a strict rule with that. Now, if you have a situation where you need one, unfortunately, because their belief system would state, basically, die. Either God will heal you from that, or you're going to die. So it's just like, now we have the technology here, which, again, going back to your point, it comes from the earth. You could say God created the earth. Therefore, doesn't God want you to be able to use that knowledge that he's imparted in you to be able to help yourself? But no, that's not how they see it. And this is where, coming back to full circle to my question, has religion helped or hurt the black community? For things like this, you have to say it hurts you. In this example of Jehovah's Witnesses, it would actually physically hurt you, because you would die, because you will be not allowed to have a blood transfusion. So there's certain things where you think to yourself, my days, if you were to stay in that religious mindset, you would literally be not allowed to evolve your mind into things which you just see now in the real world, because we have now been able to understand things now. We've now been able to push the needle. So now it's just a case of, well, I understand what the Bible says. I understand what this is telling me. I understand what the religious text telling me. But listen, this is what we can see, is what has been proven. We can see evidence right here. You know what I mean? We've created these things, Wi-Fi. We've created these technology which eliminates the need for having to, you know, hope and pray to worry about these kind of things. But that's kind of how it's just like, man, it's just crazy. And we seem to be so gung-ho about these things. But I'm like, man, it's very, very, very regressive, not progressive in regards to, I think, as a civilization in a lot.
I want to ask you something about that quickly, because that was an interesting word to use, progressive. So I've asked a lot of people this because it's not something people think about. What does, like, this might be a very like philosophical kind of thing to think about, but like, what does progressive to you mean, in the sense of, like, when you say it's not progressive, are you saying because it doesn't help to sustain life? It, like, their belief, like, it doesn't prolong your life, so it's regressive. Is that what you mean?
I think it's more from a case of I compare it to this. You would still be a child mindset in an adult's body. So as a child, you think like a child, but when you get like an adult, the things you sort of think, that's not really how the world works. And that's what I kind of mean when I say progressive. So if I give you some tangible examples, when it comes to a lot of Bible, I suppose, in the Old Testament, they would stone you to death. So they would stone you to death for not, I don't know, obeying the Sabbath days, the holy days. That's punishable by death. And a lot of civilizations now, they still, because of the sins, they would have to sacrifice animals to wash away the sins. That's what a lot of other civilizations do. I've seen some African nations do this anyway. I don't think it's even Christianity, but a lot of other religions do this as well, where they would actually kill animals as a sacrifice in the name of their God. So these are the type of things we're thinking, as a progressive type of people, does that look like something that should be done? Even the concept of how the earth was formed, even the concept of how things are created. These are all kind of things which, if you stay with that childlike mindset, you would never have an adult viewpoint of being progressive, saying, okay, when I was younger, I used to think God created it. Now I kind of have a bit more understanding of, okay, say you still believe in God, but how it was created, as opposed to it was created in 6 days. Actually, it's about 6 million years old, the planet Earth. So that's what I mean when I think say progressive. It doesn't progress itself. And what I found is the world progresses the Bible. So what happens is the world will find out some information about how the world was created and how long it was. Then the Bible will try and reinterpret the Bible to make it still fit with the modern day viewpoint of how the earth was created. So what they'll try and do is that they'll try and reinvent. This is how the reinterpretation of Bible comes into place. They reinterpret the Bible based on, well, the world has moved forward, therefore you have to move forward with it. Same thing with, homosexual clergymen and homosexual be able to marry. That's not something the Bible would ever tolerate, ever, or should ever. But because the world is the way it is, the Bible, or Christians, there's now homosexual pastors, homosexual preachers, Christians who say they're openly gay. Jesus apparently in the LGBT community. You see what I mean? So
wait, hold on. Did you say Jesus was part of the
well, sorry, loves LGBT community.
Oh my gosh.
So there are all kind of things here where, and depending on how much you believe the Bible, you could say God's a racist. God's all these kind of things. God believed in slavery. He condoned slavery. All these kind of things here, which don't really seem to be progressive viewpoints, at least in my mind. But some people may still believe that is the case.
See, that's the thing. Like, to me, like, when I think of, I just take the word very literally, because when people say the word progress, it's like I don't really like it as a word in a lot of ways, because I think the term is very inherently biased towards, because in order to say something's progressive, you have to be going off of your own idea of what the destination is. Because what I always want to understand is, when you say you're progressing to something, you must have some idea of what you're trying to move towards. But when I try and figure out what is it that you're trying to progress to, there's not really an answer. Like, so I start thinking, how do you know it's progress then, other than just it's different?
I can give you kind of, I won't say a flippant answer, but truth. So the progressiveness is the truth. So the idea is to answer these questions, answer life's questions, like this question about whether God exists, and the Bible where it says, God did this, this happened. I suppose the answer would be truth. So the progressiveness, the output is to, can we solve life's mysteries? And that's always what it's been about, in terms of where we're trying to get to. Everything else is just almost like, I won't say decoy, but just light works.
Okay, I can understand it, because again, I've cared only about the truth, like, and nothing else really. But I guess, like, it's oftentimes, because the thing is, when you're saying examples about the people sacrificing things, you're saying that's not progressive, right? But the thing is there's no real way to prove that what they're doing isn't true. Like, really, I mean, not yet anyway. Like, in the sense of, it depends on how they, like, it's described. But say, for example, if someone's saying, well, if I do this sacrifice, therefore it will please the gods, it's like, well, there's no real way to really know if they're right or not. Like, and from their perspective, whatever their truth is in their head, it is true. And the thing is that perception forms your reality. Like, if you believe something, you know, that's like what the whole placebo effect is. But that's not just to do with like you know, medical stuff or studies. Like, that's just in life. If you believe something well enough, it will literally change things. Like, it will change how you view the world, and it can even change you physiologically. Like, if you start to believe you're sick, you can actually make yourself sick. And so, in a weird way, even if something wasn't true, just by believing it, almost like when people say faith, you can will some things into existence. Like, I don't mean like, oh, you know, if I just wish to be a millionaire, I don't mean like that. But even a lot of successful people do say things like, oh, well, I visualize this, or I you know, like those same types of concepts in a weird way. Because what I'm trying to say is that truth is something that's so
subjective.
Kind of, like, it is, but it's weird because like some things just, you know, it's just not. But then you don't, like, I don't want to sound like hella philosophical, but it's not. Like, for example, if you say the sky is blue, it's like pretty much everyone should be able to agree on that, right?
Yeah, I was going to say the difference is probably, that's a fact. Truth is more, what's the word? Conclusion based. So a fact cannot be disputed, but truths, they usually are based on a belief system. It could be based on facts, but normally a belief system. That's how I always sort of separate the two. So this 2 + 2 = 4. No one can dispute that's a fact. But some truths could be a case of, I don't know, that must mean 4 must equal 5 or something daft like that. I don't know if I'm making sense, but sometimes truth is a bit more subjective term, whereas a fact is no one can dispute a fact. I hope I made sense there somehow.
Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, and numbers is a funny one as well, because when I was in school and I studied philosophy, that was something that came up as well. Like, numbers, do numbers exist somewhere in the end of the universe and blah blah blah? Because, which I thought at first, like, what kind of topic is that? But when I was learning, I was like, that's a very fair point. Like, numbers are objective in a sense. Like we made up a way to interpret numbers, but what the numbers are doing is not made by us. Like, you know, it's just how things are. We just interpret it a certain way. Like distance, we don't decide how the, you know, if certain things are, I mean, we do if we make something, but if you get what I mean, like it's just certain things that we don't decide. And that's why, like, time and all that kind of stuff, they say time's a concept that we made and blah blah, you know. But the point is that I guess what I'm trying to say is I think of progress almost like just something that we come up to, again, try to explain, like, moving forward, I guess. Like, but then this is what I'm trying to say as well about the circular thing. Are we really moving forward to something, or is it more circular than we think it is? Like, is it all just kind of going to happen and happen, like, no matter what, and all happen all over again? Because even with civilizations where we might have skyscrapers now, and we might have all these medical things, and it's like, but to what end though? Ultimately, like, because I asked this in the chat earlier, but like, if we advance things technologically, but it's destroying the planet in the process, like, what's the point of doing it? If it means that, we're gonna ruin ourselves. I mean, we've made the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb can literally wipe out humanity. I mean, like, we made that. Nature never made something that's gonna wipe out humanity like that. You know what I mean? Like, we designed that. But then that goes to my point about nature gave us the capabilities to make something like that. So if there is a God or something, it's like, why did God allow nature to be, you know, I don't know if that sounds odd, but like, I don't know. I guess I just sometimes get confused about the progress thing, because I just think, like, what are we meant to be progressing towards? But like you said, it's like truth, and that's what I like to try and go towards as well. But then the problem is that everyone's concepts of truth starts becoming different.
Yep.
And you can't really tell someone they're wrong, because the truth is you don't know you're right either. So it's like I don't believe there's some God up there, but in all honesty, I don't know. Truth be told, I don't know. So I can't tell the man who sacrifices the goat that he's actually wrong. Like, because for all I know, by the time my life's over with, I'm gonna find out I should have been sacrificing goats this whole time. I don't, you know. So I don't know.
No, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you, because you're right. When to be fair, I said that word truth, and sometimes I hate that word, because you're right. Truth can be subjective. At the end of the day, nobody knows. I know what we try and do. And this is the thing about religion and God. We can try and dispute the religion as opposed to what the texts say, but you can't find out whether God exists or not. No one, I don't think, in my own lifetime, can actually say for a fact that a God does not or does exist. We can only say, well, in the Bible it says that a man walked on water. We know from scientific fact that no man has ever, or woman or human being, has ever walked on water. Therefore, can that text be actually true? You see what I mean? We can never say whether God exists or not, but we have to look at text to disprove the text. And that's how we kind of validate or invalidate it, as opposed to saying, you know what, flipping heck, there is still a God out there. We just,
but even then, like, maybe the walking on water is just a lost science. Like, you know, like it's like, truth be told, I mean, I don't know, like maybe there's it's like Wi-Fi. Maybe it's just something we haven't discovered. Like, we have to rediscover it. I don't know, like, because I think about things like, what do they say about the pyramids in Egypt, and they got all this modern tech, they can't figure it out. How does that make any sense? You know, like, I start thinking that maybe there's certain things that we just ain't figured out yet, even though older civilizations may have figured it out.
Yeah,
you know,
like, I don't know if you know remember Stonehenge. People still don't know how Stonehenge was built, and there's been some ludicrous theories. I say ludicrous. I can't really say that word ludicrous in this conversation, but there's some theories like aliens came and built Stonehenge, and it's the same with even the pyramids. People say aliens built the pyramids. There are theories out there regarding, because we just don't know yet, because Egypt was the first civilization that was built that was so technologically far advanced from any civilization that ever existed in the world at the time. It's just like, so,
which I think is interesting because of where Egypt is situated, right? Which is obviously, you know, in Africa, which in the modern day and throughout history has always been a place people have gone to. I remember there was a stream I was on, I might have been on it with Vincent, I don't remember who it was, but someone said that if you want to be rich, you control Africa, or you get into Africa. Like, if you want to have a rich society or whatever, get stuff from Africa, basically. And it's just kind of funny that particular continent, because again, we're talking about religion and Black people. It's just funny that, you know, where Black people pretty much are as the bulk, like where we're said to have come from, they say that Africa's, you know, where humanity came from anyway. And I just think that's interesting because, again, a civilization that people, even the white man science and all this, as people might say, the white man science, whatever, all of that, it can't explain. Now, to me, that's where, like, sometimes I do start thinking, you know, like, someone can try and sit there and rationalize and say, well, aliens did not build that. But at the same time, the technology we have today cannot explain something like that. Now, I don't know about no aliens, but truth be told, and the only reason I'm saying that is because it's not consistent. It's like, well, aliens just came over, built some pyramids and ducked out. Is that what you're saying? Like, where, you know, it's just like, if I could see some proof of it today or something, fair enough, but I can't. It just seems like such an odd thing. Again, I don't know. Maybe they have some reason for it. I don't fucking know. Maybe it's like Transformers and the pyramids. I don't know, man. Like, but it just seems like a bit odd. You know what I mean? But it's just, I do try and look at those things like the wonders of the world kind of things, and just things we don't understand. Like, we don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I can see where there's still some mysticism. But my belief is that science is, if there is God or anything like that, and this kind of links to what you were saying about Black people not wanting to use the religion and the science kind of together, right? Because to me, like I said, the nature comes from technology comes from Earth. So science, the scientific method, even your ability to interpret these things comes from nature. Everything comes from everything. So it's just, to me, like, it's all natural. Even though we view it like it isn't, it is. You know, like it doesn't sound that way because somehow we've been conditioned for so long to believe technology is the opposite of nature. And I think that's just crazy when, if you literally look at it, it is not. Like, it's not even, it's literally from the planet. And so
it's made from the earth. It is.
So everything that it's capable of, I think it will tell us and reveal everything about the earth eventually. But that's honestly what I believe. Like, I think that I think that that's maybe what it can do. I don't know what we'll achieve in doing that. I don't know, but it's like, for example, the pyramids or any of these wonders, they were built probably using some form of technology or something that's from the earth. And the point is that if we're going to understand anything in life, even what you said about a god or whatever, if we were ever going to find that out using this technology that, again, came from the earth, is the best way to do it, you know, because that's how everything else that we can't see has been used. Like, we couldn't see Wi-Fi, microwaves and radio waves and, you know, all of these things, UV and all that. We couldn't see it. You still can't see it, but we found a way to we found a way to detect it and manipulate it to our own ends. So, you know, I think that that's the way we're going to do anything in life. I don't know. And we shouldn't view it as it's bad, which is another reason why I guess with Black people in particular, rather than having faith in just abstract concepts like some man in the sky or whatever, and I'm not trying to downplay it because, again, I don't know, could be, like, but it just seems so human and biased that I can't believe it's like that. Like, I don't know, just seems unlikely.
No, I 100% get what you're saying, and you are 100%. You're onto something here. And again, we're all just speculating because we don't know, but you're 100% right in your assertion and your talk about how technology is part of nature, and that's going to be it's still part of the earth. So whichever way you look at it, it's not, you know, separated from even us as a human being. We're from the earth as well. So we look at it in a completely different way, and especially as Black people, we try and make everything. We look at the abstract. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Technically speaking, here you could, you know what I mean. So I 100% get it. We're now past the 3 hour mark. I do want to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I want to try and wrap it up at the 3 hour 15 minutes or so. So Myth, I do appreciate your coming on here and your viewpoints. It's been very interesting. It's been a great stream. I want to thank everyone in the chat for showing up, showing your love. I do appreciate each and every one of you. But yeah, I really just wanted to talk about this topic just because it is one of those things where, as a people, we really, really, really are unique in how we view things, I suppose, how we view the world, and religion is definitely one of those key aspects. And not only that, how we actually, I suppose, use it, how we wield it, and how, I suppose, in your way, we should really wield it in a way to, you know, find more information out. But it seems to just stop us in our tracks, and we just seem to just not be able to. Okay, not to use the word progressive, but we're not just able to sort of finance that. It just stops us in our tracks, being able to just find out more information about what does the text actually say. So, yeah, it's just, God knows. I think it's intrinsic into us, which is why us as Black people do what we do, why we believe what we believe, and how we believe what we believe. Any sort of final thoughts, Smith, before I sort of end this stream?
No, that pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I was just going to ask, because Vincent asked in the chat about you doing a stream on IQ, whatever. That, I think that'd be interesting to talk about.
Yes. I do want to do a stream on race and IQ. I don't know when I will do it. I was kind of looking at trying to make sure I do go one a week, but I probably need to be a little bit more, have a bit more subscriber power pull for that kind of stuff, just because the algorithm. So, but yeah, I'll definitely will do, Vincent, that stream on IQ and race. I'll make sure it's a day where a lot of people are kind of free, etc. But I will definitely be doing that live stream. So buckle your chin straps. I'm telling you, buckle them right now, because it's gonna be some interesting reading. So if you can handle this stream, you be good. You should have to handle the next stream. So in regards to race and IQ, but I'm gonna go in on that one. So make sure you tune in for that one. But thanks everyone in the chat for showing out. I appreciate you here in this Sunday night, so that's Monday morning. So I appreciate you stopping by, Myth Twist, Vincent, Fiona in the chat. Who else in the chat? The Ank. I saw Serena J in the chat at one point. KB, obviously, he left, but Michael. But thanks everyone to chat. Have a good evening and morning, everyone, and we're out.
All right, peace.